So glad you could all be here. Thanks for joining us. And we have a full agenda for tonight. I know it's so exciting that you all are here. Full seats and everything. So seats. Our opening ceremony will be Chief Brad Hennig. Chief.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I had something really profound and important to share with you tonight, but because of brevity, because I'm going to be up here at least 2 other times later on in the evening, I'm going to keep it short. So if you'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chief, thank you so much. I appreciate your consideration of time tonight. So, thank you. All right. I will take a motion to accept the minutes and approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll move acceptance of the minutes and I'll move acceptance of the minutes and approval of the agenda for this evening.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Acceptance of the minutes and approval of the agenda have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Minutes have been accepted and the agenda has been approved. Our 2021 regular meeting schedule is the first and third Tuesdays. I always have to have one slip out. I know, it's always like one slip out every meeting, so just kind of be prepared for that. So first and, yeah, I know, just one. Yeah. I know, it's in the county. That was the last one. That's what I'm saying, it's like it's got to be one at least every time. So,
that's okay.
Yeah, first and third Tuesdays of the month at 5:30 p.m. and our next meeting is June 2nd, 2021. For now, and I think we're going to be changing this here fairly quickly, is questions and comments for the mayor and council. This item has been suspended due to the limit on the number of attendees in the council chambers at this time. Please email your comments and questions to teresa.harris@loganutah.org. We will distribute them to the mayor and council members. We did receive multiple emails this last 2 weeks, so we did receive those emails. Thank you very much, Teresa, for sharing those with us. But I think we have decided that in June we'll probably kind of open things back up. We decided last time, wasn't it? So we'll consider that some more. Mayor, Stafford, please.
All right, I've asked Issa Hamoud to give the council an update on the compost facility. As you may recall, we had a property in Benson that we were looking at for the compost facility, so that necessitated a visit to the Planning Commission for the County Council. That request was denied and was clearly not supported by the majority of the general county council. So Issa has moved forward, and I think he has some great plans. I really think it's going to be a good thing for our city, so I'll have him give us an update on that. Thank you.
I'll keep it short for the interest of time. This is the property we purchased several years ago for wastewater treatment plant. It's 97 acres.
Hey, Issa.
Yes. I don't know how to do that.
Jeremy's in the back. We texted him.
Mike.
There you go.
It's like magic.
See? You can learn something every day.
So this area has significant amount of wetland, and the blue area you see here, it's the National Archives information that we know this area is wetland. But the area west of that, wetlands are undetermined, so we can only do any improvements after we delineate. So about 4 years ago, when we was going ahead with the project, we've delineated up to here because we needed only that much of land to do the wastewater treatment plant at that time. Current treatment plant stops right here, where this line is. In less than 20 years, we think that we will probably build a mirror image of this on the other side. So up to here, we now have permission to build wastewater treatment plant, and it's free of wetlands, we know that. But east of that, we don't know, and we've not delineated. For us to delineate and get a permit in this area, it will take us at least a year. So what we're going to do is, we're going to take some of these future development area and build a smaller compost facility, about 6.8 acres of compost facility. And we think that is enough initially. We wanted 10 acres, but we can get by with this because we will keep the current compost for at least a year, the one at the landfill. So we will have both facilities running. After we have the delineation report and we have approval from the Army Corps, we're going to take these 20 acres and everything will be handled, because this is 10 acres is enough, but once we do the other part of the wastewater treatment plant, we will need 20 at that time. The entrance will be here. Right now, temporarily, we'll use the entrance of the existing treatment plant, which is right here. So that's our plan. This is the public garden area also that we're including in the project. And it is going to be roughly about another 4.8 acres for the garden area, and it will make about 200 plots, a little bit over that. We will have a welcome to Logan sign here, and it will be a green spot, but just north of that will also be a berm that will screen the wastewater treatment plant facility, and there will be some shrubs and trees approved by community development, and we'll follow their design approval to screen the facility. But all this area is going to be green eventually, and we'll maintain some of that. Here is going to be another wastewater treatment sign. Welcome to Logan City Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. And we will also do screening again along the highway to screen all these future facilities, as well as the compost facility, all the way to the entrance. At this entrance, future entrance, I would say, it will also have a compost facility entrance sign, but that will be in the future after we have received permit from the Army Corps. So in general, this is what will be the new compost facility and where it will be. If you have any question, I'm more than happy to answer.
Isa, how does the widening of SR30 impact any of that?
It will take some of the property, but most of it is going to be on the south side.
Okay, thank you.
However, we have to do ingress, egress of our own to develop the entrance.
Right, you'll have to have a turn lane and all of that?
Yes.
Okay.
So what is the cost of the delineation and the involvement of the Army Corps? Is there cost associated with that?
Yes, significant cost. We think that we will probably impact within that 20 acres, about 5 acres of wetland. That 5 acres, depending on what Army Corps says, it could be 3 to 1, which means if you impact 5 acres, you will develop 15 acres of wetland. 15 acres times $50,000 to $100,000 of equivalent wetland somewhere else and monitoring it for 5 years. So we're looking about somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million just for the wetlands. This is why we wanted that location. But it's just a cost, right?
It's just money, right? Oh my
Isa,
goodness.
when we went to the county, one of the biggest concerns was, of course, the perceived odor that might come from this. Frankly, I love this design, I like the location, but I have to ask the question, how far is this facility from the nearest residential area?
The closest one is across the street. You can even see that here. It's roughly 4,500 feet. Much closer than the one we had in Benson, which was about a mile.
Right.
However, we have similar facility built in Davis County. We've seen it 700 feet away from the compost facility. There are homes, big homes. You've seen those.
Big homes,
Yeah.
very expensive large houses.
And then to the new development that's occurring on 6th West, 7th West, 8th West, how far is that?
600 West, that would be more,
About
probably,
7th West or something, 8th
yeah,
West.
so from 2600 West, about 2 miles.
So that's residential, not commercial properties that close?
There's one home in that area, and I don't know whether it's occupied or not, and it's in the county.
Well, and we're very confident that with, a properly run compost facility, we can manage that.
Well, I didn't, by the end of the county meeting, I didn't have the impression that they were worried about smell. They were more concerned that we hadn't adequately investigated other sites. And it's clear that this one is gonna cost us more money.
That's correct.
So will that be passed on in sewer fees to the county community?
After this project is completed, again, we would have to look into our fees and see what we can do to recoup some of these costs. It was not in our planning, but we want to go ahead, do what we need to do. And next year, there's potential that we could ask for a rate increase.
Yeah, we had offered as part of the, developing the property in Denison to do some, gateway features, to really try and landscape it, do some of those things. So we'll just transfer that to this project, and again, also screen the facility, but it will kind of do dual purpose and make a nice gateway into Logan and screen the water treatment facility as a whole, as well as the composting.
And so, Isa, when you build the second half of the sewer treatment plant, you'll remove the first two, shall we call them bays of biosolid?
Yes, and that was another reason why we did not even wanted to consider this site. We will be spending, right now I have $5.2 million in the budget that some of this improvement will be done. I expect not to spend all the 5.2 because that was intended for the 10 acres improvement.
Right.
But some of it will be spent on this 6.8 acre, and it will be removed. We can use it for 10 maybe years or so, but after that it will be removed.
Okay. Well, I'm impressed that you made the best of a bad situation. On behalf of the county.
Yeah, we're used to being kicked out.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Any other question? No?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and sharing information.
problem.
I can hardly wait.
Mark is overly excited.
Can't wait to
about
see
your
it, I know.
final waste solid
The compost is gonna be so amazing. I've already been telling people about it, so.
He's
Once
very
the garden
excited.
grows.
I know, it's like very exciting, very exciting. Okay, moving on to council business, we have a unique presentation with former Senator Lyle Hilliard. Please, about our state districting process. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us.
Thank you. I really want to thank you, Mark, because I've been busy the last couple of days digging up my potatoes and replanting them because they didn't grow very well because of the dry. So I appreciate a chance to get away from my garden for just a minute. Listen, I was sitting down writing some notes.
There's a button on the side. You don't think your microphone is on.
Did
The base.
that makes it on? The green light goes on.
I can hear it.
Okay.
Okay.
I can hear it.
When I sit down and write notes, I come knowing I've got a very limited time. And my wife smiles and she says, I can tell you've got a strict time limit, because I could go on for days. And this has been really an interesting challenge. I was asked by President Adams, the Utah State Senate, to serve on the commission on doing redistricting. To give you a little bit of history, that's Proposition 4, which barely passed the state of Utah and failed in Cache County. And so when I have people come to me and say how important it is, and I agree, it's important that we do redistricting in a way that's fair, and we try to handle it in a way, but this has been really an interesting challenge. My favorite is I usually get an email, a number of them, who say, you dirty rotten Republicans, you always gerrymander and you hurt us. But I wanted to make sure that I have a Democratic congressman. I think when there's 600,000 plus registered Republicans and less than 200,000 registered Democrats, it's kind of hard not to gerrymander to create a district for them to vote in. So one good thing is in our process, we will not ask voting records. We will not look at registration or anything like that. We're going to try to do it by we can on the numbers. Now, what does that really mean to you? Let me tell you, first of all, I personally support districts. I'll tell you why. I think when you're in a district, you can easier campaign on a person-to-person basis. People know who you are. They can call you, you mingle with them at the grocery store, church, or neighborhoods, or wherever you are, and I like that. But I think if you're going to move into that, it's much more difficult than you think it is. I think people sit back and think, well, that's very easy to draw the lines. 10 years ago, when we did redistricting, we had a very noted newspaper reporter for the Salt Lake Tribune who was just beating us up like crazy about how rotten we were and how unfair we were. And so we said, come on up. We'll give you all the computers, all the staff, you draft it. And after about a full day of it, he said, and the closest he got was 86% close. And you have to be 99.9%. He was 86. And he said, this is impossible, and walked away. Because it really is difficult to do. And I tell people, we're going to put it out on a screen so you do your redistricting, but 2 rules. You have to follow the law, and you have to do the whole district. Because it's really easy for me to sit down and say, this is how I'll do Logan or Cache Valley. And I do that, and that's fine. But how it works into the other places is very difficult. So with that, let me just say, and one thing I need to warn you about. As we look at this redistricting committee, we've decided we need at least 2 lawyers, and they're going to have staffs with them. One lawyer to look at redistricting and how you do that. Another one, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The other one to look at the Voting Rights Act. And I'll give you an example. Here in Logan, I think we're pretty fair, and I like how the city council, but say, for example, and I'll just use for an example, 50,000 population of Logan. So that'd give you districts of 10,000 each. And population, you can measure population you know. The rest of the thing I'm going to talk about, you don't know. You can guess at them, and I'll give you some games to guess at it. But when you take population of 10,000, you can have an area of Logan. I'll pick on, for example, the university. I have a lot of university people live by me in Hillcrest. Say the community decides we don't want university people serving on this committee, on the city council. So we're going to vote at large, and even though in that district they could get enough votes to be elected, when the whole city votes for them, the city doesn't vote for them. And so you end up with the majority of people electing groups. And so in many districts on a national level, they have a minority district. Very simply, if you want to do it, and I'll pick on the African American problem there. They put all of them in one district, so they're like 99% African American, and then they have 55% white in the other area, so that they win, and the African Americans are never really adequately covered. And so you really have that potential issue when you have at-large elections. You can have all the people on the east side of Logan say, we don't want anybody from the west side of Logan to be on our city council. So when they run, even though in their district, they would easily win because they understand that people like them, but because the majority of the vote on a large basis is from another area. And that's a risk. That's an issue I think you really need to look at, because that's one issue you have to handle that. Okay, let me talk about some of the challenges you have. Is number one, who would do the redistricting for you, set it up? Under the Utah Constitution, the legislature does it. So under Prop 4, our independent committee is supposed to come up with 3 different plans for the Congress, for the House and Senate, and for the state school board. We then send it to the legislature, they look at it, and they have to specifically say why they're gonna vote for it or vote against it. And I could just give you some options to show you very easily. I can disagree with any of them, and you can disagree with any where you draw the line. For example, in northern Utah, we have not enough population in Box Elder, Cache, and Rich to have 2 Senate districts. But we have more than just one. And so if we take Rich, and Cache, and Box Elder, we have to pick up some other area to come in there to make a Senate district large enough to make 2 Senate districts. When I was first elected, we had Summit County. I had Camas, and I had Colville and Hennifer in my Senate district. And to get to them, I had to drive through Wyoming, or I had to drive through Brigham City, Ogden, 3 other Senate districts to get to them. But they were connected by property lines, so you could do it. We switched that around, and now they end up having part of Tooele County, which I guess you can drive through the roads Box Elder gets to Tooele County, but as a practical matter, you go through Ogden, Davis, and Salt Lake to get there. Or you can take Ogden. And I tell you, when you talk about Ogden, we have one House seat that used to be Tooele. They moved it into Ogden, and the Ogden person won this last election. So if you're looking at the legislature and saying, boy, I want all the Aggies down there I can get, Box Elder County lost one of their representatives because it was elected from Weaver County. Now, I'm sure that delegate is going to be working hard because he understands he represents Box Elder County, but there's that kind of feeling. So it's really kind of difficult to do it. And who does it? You'll have to decide who does it and how you handle the process. Number 2, staff is very, very important. As I've said, we're going to have at least 2 attorney teams, one team on the Voting Rights Act, one on how you do actually redistricting. Plus you have staff, and they've got a lot of computer programs. We had one of our first meetings, and a city or county planner, Davis County, he explained what they did 10 years ago when they got through the reapportionment to look at the county map and redo the voting districts. Now, you don't have to have equal voting in voting districts, as you know. You can have different districts, different size, because they don't elect people on the council. But they found out, and they showed us, that the census lines went right down houses. You know, so people say, well, that's just, we'll just follow the census line. The census lines are all screwed up from what we have. And so you have to manipulate and go whichever way you're going to go on those. So the computer programs are good, but very expensive. And you need to have somebody who knows how to run them. When you couldn't work a thing, I just told Kevin, my old story always is, ask my 5-year-old granddaughter. She'll come and show you how to run these, Tom. You won't have to worry about it anymore.
So you're just 5 years old, you should start the district.
I can tell you that in cost. Now, the easiest thing to measure, and I say it this way, but it's not true, is population. I can count population. So if you have 50,000 people in your city and you have 10,000 in a district, that seems like fairly easy to count. But the thing that bothered me as I started getting into this, and I've never been on a redistricting committee before. 4 times it's been redistrict. I've always avoided it. I said, I got too much other things to do. But the problem gets to be, what about the people who don't vote? Now here in Logan, we have a lot of students. And I would want to count them in the census because they put pressure on Logan City for needs. You need to have that count in there, but most of them, my experience has been, if they are living in dorms, they vote home. They don't vote here. We have a senator who represents the Provo student housing area of his district. Usually to win a Senate seat, you need 20 to 25,000 votes. he usually wins with less than 10. Because he has that count of all those students there, but they don't vote. And they vote home. And so you have other people who don't vote, children. And when you count the population in the census, you count children, they don't vote. We have people living here who may not be registered, may not be citizens, they can't vote, but we need their count because of the pressures that they put on the city and what we need for census. So it is not so easy to count how you do them. Now, when you talk about the laws that we have binding us, federal law says that our congressional districts cannot have a variation of more than 1%. Now, we're going to have 820,000 people per congressional district for the 4 districts we have. That means 8,200 people difference. And so when you start doing districts and trying to figure them out, Idaho did a rezoning and redistricting and came back 11% off, and they were struck down by the courts. You got to count within 1%. That's 8,000, and so for your 10,000 people, you've got to come up with, if it were 1%, you have to come up with 100 people in that district. And so it gets really kind of tight. And so people say, well, don't cut our neighborhood out. I'll give you a good example. I live up on Hillcrest. I have no idea how many people live up there, but I don't think 10,000 do. So what do you take Hillcrest and what do you join with them? You take the island area, bring that up and put them together. You take down off the hill where the students live in that area, you put that with the Hillcrest. What do you do with Cliffside? Well, Cliffside, if you put them with the island area, they have to drive down off the hill, over the river, and up into there. And one of the criteria is you honor natural boundaries, rivers, roads, streets, and things like that. And so, as you start looking at this, what is the community of interest that you have to play? That's a pretty subjective kind of a thing. And so when you start thinking those ideas, you're going to put them together, you need to kind of figure out how that comes and keeps your population. Now for the legislative district, it's 10%. And so you can have up to 10% difference in legislative seats, not the Congress. Congress is 1%. And so again, I'll take, if there's 50,000 seats in a congressional seat, and that's about what it's going to be, the 10% it goes 5% either way. So you could have 55,000 in a district or 45. You couldn't have 40 or 60. The 10% is 5% on each side of your measure, is where you are. And so, again, these become really challenging things to do that. I think the other things that we look at is natural boundaries. We look at those people come together. Now, I'm going to share, I'm going longer than I really wanted to go. I want to make just 2 other points to you. Number 1 is how do you do it on a fairness? One of the problems you have when you have districts is people then advocate and protect their district. But somebody has to step and say, wait a minute, I love the Lindstrom Park, but nobody's down here speaking for the River Park down in the golf course. We need somebody to help those people in there, or this area of Bridgerland. And so the trouble when you get to be so isolated in your groups, you don't have somebody or groups. So one thing you could do, and this as I looked at it 10 years ago in the legislature, they had a big debate in the legislature about how to do reapportionment. Salt Lake County wanted one district out of Salt Lake County. It was called the donut hole. You take one district out of Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County has, I think, 1.2 million people. A congressional district will have just over 800,000. So you couldn't have 2 congressional districts out of Salt Lake County. You could have 6 and 6, or you could have 8 and then 4 someplace else when you do it. So you may want to look here at Logan City. One of the vital things of Logan City, and I appreciate what Mayor Daines has been doing, you've been doing in this regard, is we can't let downtown die. And downtown is changing with these apartments and things that are being built here. We need people on the city council who, true, they're going to be concerned about where they live, where they're elected in a district. But we need people who say, wait a minute, it's important to me that downtown Logan is vibrant. It's important to me that Bridgerland Park is doing well, because we all live in this city together. We're all together and helping each other. And that's one of the things I think when you district and do that. But I think the key thing is number one, there's very little time, and you're at an ideal time, let me just take that. We have very little time. We will not get our figures until the middle or the end of August. We've got to have our recommendation to the legislature by the 1st of November. So that's all I'm going to be doing probably those months, is going to meetings and public meetings and again, trying to put this thing together. You have an advantage in the fact that you don't have another election for another year, because you're the odd different years as your elections. Our county clerk is going to be doing districts that they're going to have to do as we revamp these lines. And I think you're going to have people who can help you, who are doing this, that can help you come back and look at it to do it fairly. And you're not going to be under the time pressure. And if you want to do it, you need to do it right. Because I don't know, I don't know if Kimber Housley even knows himself how much these voting rights acts apply to city elections. You know, you don't have partisan, so it's not so issued as whether the Republicans are here or Democrats are here, but you do have the issue that one man, one vote. And it's important that we protect that right of people to vote and how we do that. I think transparency is very, very important. When we get our website up, which we hope we'll have in a couple of weeks, we're going to let people put in their plans. And again, I say, do the whole district, don't do just your little district, and follow the law. Come within that 1% and see if you can do it and do it. The remarkable thing, 10 years ago, someone from Logan on that computer program designed a reapportionment for the state school board, the 15 seats. The legislature looked at that and said, that's a great idea. And they adopted it. So that one was done by someone here in Logan who worked with the computers and went through the program and did that. So get public involvement in it, public thinking about it. But again, the problem yet to be is what in the world is a community of interest? And that's what you have to try to do when you do your lines. And so your population. And be prepared to spend money. Don't think it's going to be done cheaply or you're going to do it quickly, because there's some obvious issues. I don't know if any of you have thought about the issue that I just raised about being all elected at large. What about this group of people who ought to have a representative on the council, but just can't get it because the majority of the voters would vote for somebody else? And so I think that's important to keep in mind, that the strength of the city council, in my view, or legislature or anything else, is different views. And I found just because people in the same political party, they don't necessarily have the same views. But it's important that everyone has views and expresses them and be able to work them into what you want to do. If I'm still alive, and hope when we finish this thing, I'll be glad to come back and give you a report how we did. But again, like I said, I can take any plan you want to look at. Let me share this with you because I think it drives it home. When the reapportionment committee finished their recommendation, I sat down and looked at it. And they had taken my Senate district and they had divided Nibley in half. North half of Nibley was in my Senate district, the south half was in Pete Knutson's. Because again, Cache County with Rich County is too large for one senatorial district. We have to take part of our county and give it to Box Elder County to balance them out. So Senator Knudsen and I got together and we talked about it, and so we decided he would take all of Nibley and I would take Mendon, Petersboro, and Benson. So they're now on that. Made sense, I think, to everybody to do it that way. Jill Zollinger, who followed this is really great, she called me the next day and she said, Senator, what do you do about these 4 families that live between Nibley and Millville? What district do they go into? I said, you got to be kidding. She said, no. We want to make sure on this division we do it as much as we can. There's a lot of complaint about 10 years ago and how we did it, and again, they did the pizza. They said every legislator needs to be worried about rural Utah and urban Utah. If you have somebody just from Salt Lake, the likelihood they're not going to be so concerned about the things going on in the desert or the mountains or there. And so that was, and I disagreed at first, and as I got into it, I really agreed with them. I think we need legislators that are not Democrats or Republicans, but are Utahns. And I'm a strong advocate in our meetings of having that kind of mixture again in those, because the community of interest, we can define that all we want, but population. And our population came, that Rob Bishop's district had one more in the vote than the other three. And I was told by our staff that there was lots of suing, and the attorneys who do all this say, when they're that close number, it's not going to do you any good to sue, because the population is really an important criteria. And you can talk about this line and that line, but the courts are not going to spend time saying the line should have been on 3rd East instead of 2nd East and those kinds of things. But population becomes the driving factor when you do it. And again, it's not easy, because when you start talking about where you draw lines, you're going to have lines drawn that people are not going to like. I'm done.
Thank you, Senator Hillard, former Senator Hillard. Anyone have any questions for Lyle?
So you said at the state level, it's ultimately up to the state legislature to approve. So would your recommendation be that comparably then here it would be the city council that would approve whatever districting plans were brought forward?
You know, Kim would have to answer that directly for me, but I'm pretty sure you would have to adopt it by here. And I don't think you have the restrictions on you about the party issues because you're nonpartisan. But the population and the community of interest, and making sure that people in groups, sizable recognized groups, have some say in the electability of people. I think that's not written down. You don't really see that. When you see the litigation, that's the concern that the courts have, is you may have a sizable minority in your community who, because of whatever factor, they can never elect somebody on the city council because you all run at large.
But Senator Hilliard, can you speak to, if you divide blindly by population, blindly being population is your divining, your divining rod, so to speak, you're going to come up with districts where there is a high voting propensity, so more than the average number of people vote. And you're going to have areas where far fewer than the average vote. So if you say that one area is deciding where the people are coming from, couldn't the other area, just by increasing voting participation, would make an incredible difference in the outcome of any election, correct?
It could, but you can't take that into criteria because it may change each year. You can have a Romney running and things change different than when a Trump's running. And and again, that's one of the first questions I raised in our first meeting. I said, to me, if we're going to really do one man, one vote, we ought to look at the voting and whose votes. But you have students here at Utah State who probably vote at home who can vote here. They can decide tomorrow to vote here and register and vote here instead. And how do you really count that? So the counting.
One of the challenges you have in Logan is that the students are everywhere. Yeah. They're not concentrated in one area at all. They're probably our most diverse area of interest. Most dispersed, I should say. But anyway.
But if you decide you want to go with this, I'll be more than happy to recommend names and people that could help you with this thing. But again, I think it's important for all of us to understand. I look at myself and I think I'm like typical. And one of the things I used to really enjoy about the opening session of every morning of the Senate is we'd have somebody give a prayer. And I'd hear Hindu, I'd hear Native American, I'd hear Methodist, I'd hear Catholic, Jewish, I'd hear all that stuff. And to me, it was a reminder to me that I represent a diverse group. Not everybody's like me. And I need to remember when I'm representing the city or the state, I represent everybody, not just the few who look like me or talk like me or act like me. So I think it's important that as you do your thing in the city that you remember that you need to give everyone a fair chance to run for election because they could represent a group. Tom?
Yeah, one other question with regard to what Jeannie was saying. The students are all over. Well, we are concerned about ethnic groups. And let's just, I'm Danish, so we're concerned about the Danes. But the Danes live all over the place, so you can't divide a district to try to include the Danes. You know what I'm saying? And it could be the same for Hispanic or Black or Native American. Is that correct?
That's correct, but there are certain groups that are protected. And a group like Native Americans are protected. African Americans are protected if they're in a sizable enough group to be represented. I mean, I can go to the Supreme Court decisions, that's what they tell you. So you have to be protected, concerned when you do those type of things that you're inclusive.
But if they're not in a geographically cohesive area, how do you do that?
Well, you just make sure when you draw the lines, you don't draw them out.
Okay.
And that's always that quandary, because if you have a percentage of population across the city at large, that group across the whole city could vote to elect a candidate that resembles them in one area of interest versus in a geographic interest. So that's the flip side of the at-large versus the district, when you don't have a geographic community of interest where community of interest is evenly dispersed. And I know that's one thing that the committee looked at, is how does our population fall out in the city of Logan, and we really don't have any clear communities of interest by geography. And that's one of the things I struggle with this, so.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, these are things you think about, things you try to handle and you try to do. None of us are perfect, and things can change. I see these buildings going down in downtown Salt Lake right now, and I see building here in downtown. It's changing. 10 years from now, this whole population may be a totally different thing that we're talking about right now. So, but I think as long as you're doing it for the right reason, to make sure everybody feels a part of what we're doing and a part of the solution to make this a better place to live. And I think you've done a great job. I mean, I'm proud to say I'm from Logan.
And we're proud to say you're from Logan too.
You've given us a lot to think about, so thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us.
Okay, thank you. I'll go get my potatoes replanted.
There you go.
Don't send us a bill.
And be safe walking along 1600. I see you out there motoring, and I'm always like, that looks like Senator Hilliard. I hope he's being safe on the road there.
I only walk because it feels so good to quit. It feels so good to get home and take that shower. It's worth the day. See ya.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you. Vice Chair Simmons, do you have an update with the Planning Commission?
My computer went dark. Hold on a second. Yes, I was not at Planning Commission, but Russ was kind enough to send me the minutes, and I knew what they were talking about, so I will just go through it real quickly for you. Hold on a second. I got the wrong one. Hold on. I know that they talked about Mill Creek, and they approved the second phase of Mill Creek pending the approval and agreement of the canal companies. That's a hurdle that still has to be jumped over. They also, hold on, go on to something else and I'll find the other one.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jeannie.
Kipper.
So we had a convenience store approved,
Okay.
Bird Sea Store, that's on 1400 North, 6th West. And
So across the street from the Bridgerland Technology College?
yeah, that's on 10th, isn't it?
No, it's on 14th.
Yes.
So it's by all the new storage units.
So it was 14th and 6th were
Yeah.
the northwest corner. So did you find?
No, I haven't found them yet, but I quit looking when you started talking.
And then we did a manufacturing office out again on 6th West, about 2200 South. That one was approved. And we had one other, and I can't remember what it was.
I'm not coming up with it either, so.
Mill Creek will not come to council because it doesn't need a rezone.
Mill Creek will not come to council.
None of those projects will come into council.
Yeah, so hold on a second.
Oh, yeah, the fourth one I should have remembered is Logan City's light and power substation.
Oh, there you go.
Out on 10th
That's right.
North and
I read through it.
1800
How could you forget that?
south. It went so quick, it was approved in like 2 minutes, so,
All right. That's the new substation.
right.
It's one of the new substations.
Awesome.
It's not the one on campus, correct?
10th West and 18th North.
One more campus is still under consideration.
Well, it's still in process, let's put it that way. Sorry about that, I should have been a little more organized.
No worries.
It's agreed upon in concept. We're just waiting for some topographical to see exactly where it is and then to sign the land lease, but it has been agreed to in principle.
Wonderful. Great news. That's really good. Okay. Our council budget workshop is next Tuesday, the May 25th at 5:30.
Woo-hoo.
Is that our last
Right here.
budget? Yes, right here.
Yes, it's our
Is
last.
our last one? Okay. That's almost worth celebrating also.
You didn't come to the first one.
I know. That was a very good reason to not be here, so I apologize for my absence,
Give me
but
a hard time.
You're
that's
an
what it is.
insulting picture. That's it.
I know your presentation is enchanting, but you know.
It is.
Okay. July meeting schedule. In July, the 4th of July is on Sunday, and I know that the city will probably be closed on the 5th, Mayor Teresa. So we had discussed maybe not having the 6th as a council meeting for the holiday. It'll be difficult for staff to have things prepared the next day in advance. What all would you like to do?
Well, we usually cancel one of the July meetings. So what's the 24th look like?
24th is on a Saturday.
And so the official holiday's the Friday,
It'll be
right?
Friday
The
before,
23rd.
yeah. So the 20th appears to be much more convenient for staff for us to make this work.
Delete the 6th.
Is that a motion, Tom?
I
Okay
move
with that.
that. Don't delete the day, just
Yeah,
our
there's
meeting.
just no meeting on the 6th. Anyone else want to chime in?
And that's been pretty consistent, that we only have one
One
meeting in
meeting,
July. So, unless there's something pressing that you all are aware of, that's nothing urgent that we would need to meet earlier.
Maybe Mike's one to ask.
Hey, Mike, you paying attention over there?
Whoa. Yeah, 6, we're fine with that.
Okay,
I would suggest that we cancel the meeting on the 6th and just plan on being here the 20th. Is everybody okay with that?
and just a reminder to the public, we really technically only need to meet once a month, correct? To meet state code, like city council
There's
does
no
not need
state
to
code,
meet, yeah.
it's our local code, and we have regular meetings twice a month, but you can change that.
Okay. Thank you all for your input. All right. We put a discussion of the plastic bag ordinance on here. Issa, there was no meeting of the solid waste board or anything. We don't have any updates, I guess is what I'm asking. So
No, but we will be, I'll ask for a meeting in the next few weeks of the Solid Waste Advisory Board to have a discussion about plastic bag. We have a number of new mayors in the Solid Waste Advisory Board now. Some of the other mayors are no longer serving, so I may have to go back and re-educate and do what we need to do to get approval from them. Hopefully, before or around January, we should have an approved solid waste, management plan. So you don't have to adopt the ordinance. That's my hope.
My question when we met 2 weeks ago was when did we
And-
push that back out to when it was
and
January?
Teresa checked on that, and we said January
January 2020.
of 2022. So we have some time, but the sooner the better.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for the update. All right. Let's move on to our action items. Mike, continuation from May 4th of our public hearing. Any advancements?
Yes.
Yes.
And I can go through just a brief, if you want me to go through a brief presentation on this, I can. I'll take 30 seconds or
30 seconds is perfect.
Okay. So this is the Campbell Legacy Annexation. This, you all heard this a few months ago, and then it got deferred because we had a protest from Nibley. That got decided on May 6th. They denied Nibley's request, and so now it's obviously back to you guys for a decision. Just briefly, it's 37.45 acres off of 8th West, just on the north side of 2200 South. The FLUP has it multifamily. This shows you a context of what the area around it. It's multifamily to the west, commercial, industrial to the north, and then also single-family multifamily. We're proposing to zone it MR20. Here's kind of some context again on that. You've got multifamily to the west, commercial, industrial around it, and as you go further out, single-family rec. We've had this site in our annexation plan since 1996. You can see, obviously, the site is in here, and we originally had planned to go down to 2600 South. That was modified in 07. Still on the plan to go that far down. Our infrastructure is proposed to service this area. This project, as it's going in, is required to, these lines will be engineered to service this site over in here. These will be 2 proposed roadways. The roadways around these will be improved to city standards, and eventually this going out will be improved to city standards. We did this in anticipation of Nibley's protest about there's no park space near this site. You know, their complaint was all these people that live here will drain down into Nibley and, you know, monopolize their park use. And we said, well, within a mile, literally, you know, a 3-minute car ride, you've got all these available recreational assets. And this discussion kind of came up last time about why MR20 for this site. And I'll just kind of hit these really quick. It's adjacent to existing and planned multifamily, commercial, industrial uses. It's just this area up here on the other side of the highway, which is accessible off of 10th West. You know, Cytiva is adding hundreds of new jobs. Thermo Fisher is adding jobs. Icon is adding jobs. So this is one of those locations that you can live and then also bike or walk to work. There's a proposed trail extension along this roadway that will bring you up to the roadway and you can cross over. It provides that horizontal balance of a mixture of uses, which is a good thing based on our plan. These higher densities provide, maximize available land use, but also provide affordable housing, yada, yada. So the language in the MR20 zone, when we set this zone up, we want to make sure these are located near employment centers and service areas so folks can walk, be within close proximity. And then these are the standards for the MR20, 20 units to the acre, 30% open space. So on this site, when they develop, at least a third of that site will be considered open space. Max height is 45 feet, lot coverage is 60 feet, so, or 60%. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, if you have, answer them. Or turn it over to the public.
When you talk about affordability, that's just a general statement. We're not requiring any affordability in MR20, are we?
No, that's just a generalized statement.
Thank you.
Do the students that would live in this area go to the county schools?
It is zoned for Cache County School District.
So that negates the argument by Nibley about burdening them. It's going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the discussion before about school district boundaries, and we have no control over those.
Right.
You know, they don't change with city
I mean,
boundary lines.
it makes it a moot point.
Correct.
Right.
The
And the
county
parks,
will receive the per pupil rate of demand, so
Right.
it makes sense that the students go.
and the parks, people don't take attendance or get IDs to go to a park. I go to parks.
Well, you should only go to Logan Park since you're a Logan resident.
I go to parks because they're convenient. Yeah. And they do too.
Any other questions for Mike? If not, this is the opportunity if you would like to comment on Ordinance 21-04. Now's your opportunity for a public comment. I do not know if we've received any emails on this, Teresa. No.
Well, it was a maybe happen, maybe don't, maybe happen, maybe don't. So maybe people didn't know.
If there are no comments, I can see some movement in the gallery. Please state your name and sign in.
Gail Yost, I've already signed in. This is just a personal, for personal information. You don't have any, there is no plan right now for any kind of development in this area, as far as we know. Is that what you're saying, that that area that's going to be MR20 has no particular development?
Not that we've seen, no.
Okay. Is it possible to require what you were asking about, Jeannie, about affordability, to make sure that it's affordable for people who can't afford some of the other properties that we have a lot of people who cannot find housing right now because it is not affordable. And so I'm just wondering if it's possible to require that they have a certain percentage of affordable housing for low income, whatever you want to specify as low income. I think that's important, that if we're going to annex them, we need to have places to put people who have no place to move. And we need to start thinking about those people who don't have good housing right now. I just think we have a lot of problems getting housing for people with lower income. It's my personal opinion. Thank you.
There's no way
We don't have any mandates or requirements to
yeah.
mandate a specific percentage.
The nearest thing that we have that can happen is it, depending upon the lender to the particular development. I know that when one development happened down the west side of Logan, they got some historic grant money that required that a certain number of the units be remain affordable.
Yeah, there's tax credits they can go after through the state that would enable that to happen, and I don't know what the plans are in this location.
Which we have happening in Logan right now. So there is some of that going on. So thank you for the question. If there's no other comments, let's bring it back to the council for action.
I would move acceptance of ordinance 21-04.
And I will second that. I was just about to go. I've taken the breath.
Good time. Ordinance 21-04 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I'm glad we can provide services.
Yeah. Yes, we can provide services. That's good. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance is approved. Let's move on to ordinance 21-10.
And I'll say publicly before we're done, please tell the planning commission that we did this,
Okay.
so they really know.
They get notified of all these things through a monthly report.
I know, but
Yeah.
just make sure that they really know.
Knock on their door and send them a Christmas card.
Yeah, something like that before Christmas, please. I expect you to personally knock on everyone's door.
And Mike, it sounds like you are taking Russ's place since he has a significant event today.
He's at state soccer. His son is on Ridgeview.
Yeah.
They're playing Tooele, I think.
Yeah, so it's very painful when he said, asked us to say, go Ridgeline. I was like, I can't, I gotta choke on those words, I'm sorry.
We'll root for Holly Jr. How's that?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you get the B team tonight, so here you go.
Please, go ahead.
So this is ordinance 2110, again, it's another public hearing. This is 2.07 acres on the west side of 100 West, just west of the Adams project that is just about complete on the south side of the river. The FLUP is, future land use plan map, shows it as mixed-use center. The proposed zoning, or the current zoning is MR20, and the proposed zoning is to go to MR30. It's floodplain is below it, so there's no flooding issues. This site is this site right here, and when you originally saw this, what it's been about a year and a half, 2 years, it was all under this combined parcel. The owners at that time chose to segregate that out. probably for lending purposes for this bigger site. The Planning Commission looked at this in April, 6-1, approval of it. The zoning history is, it's been commercial since the 70s, used to be all this equipment. Went to mixed use in 2012 and then came back to this group in 2019 to go to commercial in MR20. And do you want me to cover these questions or not? I can, but basically these were the questions that were asked last time. There's no other properties zoned MR30 in the city. Previous owners were Ellis's, and we did our public notification.
24 houses,
24 homes,
24 locations.
24 properties.
Thank you.
Yes. So the zoning, the distinctions on the zoning, MR20, obviously 20 units to the acre, 45 feet is your building height, setbacks, 10, 8, and 10, open space is 30%, parking 2 stalls per unit. MR30 allows to go denser, 30 units to the acre, 55 feet in height, same open space, same parking. Now, the previous zoning that was mixed use is a little interesting too, because it also is similar to MR30, 30 units to the acre. It does allow for a density bonus if you build ground floor commercial. And in this case, this parcel size would require 1,500 square feet. Building height's a little bit taller, 58 feet, less open space, and then the parking ratios are reduced. So again, the proposal is to go to MR30, and when you look at the location, the context of this, obviously across the river you've got single family, but around it you've got a lot of job generation going on. This building across the Main Street, obviously you've got Riverwoods, and that has the same kind of concept. Well, horizontal mixed use, you've got apartments next to some commercial. This is similar to that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mike? I think Russ did a really good job explaining it last time too. That's why we don't have any extra questions.
And this, what's the parking ratio?
2-2.
2-1.
1. Okay, if there's no questions, let's open this up for public comment. If anyone has comment or question about Ordinance 21-10, now's your opportunity. State your name and make sure you've signed in, please.
Good evening, I'm Michael Jewell. I'm helping Craig, and we're joined by John White tonight working on this project. I won't take a lot of your time tonight, Council. I think you're probably all familiar with the project. It's a cool project that we're excited about. Obviously, I think the intent is like Mike said and what Russ pointed out in his staff report is a horizontal type mixed use project. And he pointed out that the MR30 is closer to the FLUP and the long-term plan for this piece, closer than the MR20. I think that the original request for MR20 was a mistake on our end. I think the intention all along was to kind of match what the mixed use original plan was and to kind of partition off the residential from the commercial and retail area. So I guess we're kind of trying to fix that and get closer to what the original intent and the long-term plan for the property was. And I won't repeat what Russ spelled out. I think he did a great job talking about the benefits of MR30 in this area. It's going to be, I can't remember if it was P&Z or in the council that we talked about the walkability for this. The area will complete the Logan River Trail, or will attach the Logan River Trail. People will be able to walk. Obviously, through the commercial area, there's the retail pads out front along Main Street that are part of this overall project. And there are a lot of exciting lease negotiations going on right now with some restaurants in that area. And then ultimately the bridge that will go underneath and connect to the east side of Main Street. Maybe is the hope, I guess. But it's certainly, I mean, the walkability score or whatever for this project will be very high.
Any tidbits of potential tenants that you can share with us?
You know, I thought you might ask, and I don't. I wish we were farther along in some negotiations. I can say that there are some national tenants that we are in the middle of negotiating with that I think will will bring a smile to a lot of residents' faces. We actually are working with a couple of local, local connections to bigger chains that I think will be exciting as well. So I think overall, those retail pads, I think we're very excited about, and I think they'll be good. And frankly, a lot of the restaurants that we deal with ask about. There's almost 70,000 feet of commercial space in that building, and that'll generate a lot of that with regard to the tax base. That'll be incredible. Adding some residential there in the MR30 will help support those restaurants as well and generate some tax revenue as well.
Thank you.
Well, I will say the design that was approved for those buildings, not that will be restaurants, they're all very nice, and I hope they look just like that when they're done.
It's exciting, yeah. I think they'll be very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's any other comments? If not, let's bring it back to the council for action.
I actually have a question before.
Yeah.
How tall is the Adams Wealth building compared to this? Because this could go up to 55 feet. Do you know how tall the Adams Wealth building is, that commercial?
Like that.
Yeah, so the zoning max is 55 feet for that as well, so it wouldn't be taller than that. And I don't know if it reaches all the way to 55 feet.
I believe the penthouse structure sticks up above that. We required them to screen some of that. They had some heating and cooling units up there. So these won't be taller than that.
It won't be taller than that.
Yeah.
But they'll be the same height.
The same height, most likely.
Well, they can go to the same height.
Okay,
And it's set way back from the pipe.
okay. And then my other question was, can you show me on the map, so that's where the pedestrian crossway is, right down there, like on the road where the little V is that where the pedestrian crossway is?
To go across
To
which
go
way?
across Main Street right now?
I don't know if this map.
Yeah, at the Y.
At the Y.
Oh, at the
Yeah.
Y. Yes.
So that's the Y right there, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get my orientation. So there's pedestrian crossing right there now,
That's
correct? So people living there could cross over
Correct.
to the other side. Okay, thank you.
And I assume since this is all under one ownership, parking issues of overflow will be handled on your own property. Is that correct?
Yep. We'll make sure all the parking meets the code.
Well, that doesn't, I'm not talking about that. I'm
Yeah,
talking
well-
about the overflow parking that will happen.
Yeah, we won't, we'll make sure that we're not burdening the neighbor.
Will you have cross easements?
We may have some cross easements between the residential and the commercial side with regard to, it works out nicely because of essentially the timing of use, right? So with the commercial side being used primarily during the day, and we'll probably have some cross parking there, but we're certainly going to, parking always drives the question, right? So we'll create as much.
Well, depending on the size of the units, 2 spots may or may not be adequate,
Sure.
depending on how it's rented. And so I would assume that you would have parking on site for the project, but then you could have overflow in your parking lot.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to move approval of 2110. I love this project. I think it's a mixed use is the thing we'd like to see in our community. It's a place that I think would be very attractive to live. With the river, with the amenities, with the shopping nearby, access to the highway, it'll be a very attractive place. So that's a motion.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Council. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? 4 passes.
Thanks, Mike.
Our next ordinance, 21-11, also Mike. Can you
Okay.
share that with us, please?
Bet, ordinance 21-11, Riverside RV Park rezone. This is kind of on the other spectrum of a property next to the river. 4.78 acres off of 1700 South. This is on the southern side of 8991. And it's got an existing RV park in there currently, and it's south of Country Manor. The FLUP has it designated as recreational, the zoning is rec. The proposal is to go from rec to MR20. And here's a copy of the 2011 floodplain map that shows this site, majority of it within the 100-year floodplain. This gives you context of where it's at. You've got some industrial on the south side, you've got train tracks on the west side, city recreational facilities on the east side, and then residential to the north. And it was recommended denial by Planning Commission 6-1. And we had one comment from the current owner. It's been zoned R3 in 85, C2, which is a commercial zone in 89, and then it was zoned rec in 2000. And there, we have a permitted park in there, 20 sites. I don't know if you want me to go through these questions or not. Floodplain map was adopted in 2011. We have a current map that's being reworked now that may change that floodplain to include more of the floodway. Typical density of the townhome project obviously varies based on the project. So the recreation zone allows for RV parks, cell towers, utilities, governmental things like golf courses, storage yard recycling. So this could be a recycling center as well. Lucky us. RV park, the rec, there's no residential density that's permitted. The MR20 allows 20 units per the acre, obviously with 45 feet height, some open space. And really what it comes down to is what's the highest and best use of the property, given that the floodplain and the floodway is on the site. So if you build there, you've got to mitigate for those impacts. And it's not just as simple as building something on stilts. It's if you put a spadeful of dirt here, where does that floodwater go to here, and you have to mitigate for that. So it'll be a challenge to build on that site.
So that's our biggest concern is the floodplain.
That's correct. And that's one reason why the Planning Commission recommended denial. So happy to answer your questions.
Okay.
I guess I'll remake my comment is that if
You're
you,
gonna talk about stilts again.
I will. And you'll enjoy it.
Thanks.
You've done some extra research.
Well, I thought about this. I mean, if you said no floodplains can have housing, and most of South Carolina and Georgia would not have housing. I mean, I spent a while back time down there, and you go for miles with buildings that are mitigated. So if the reason to not zone it is floodplain, I would say you could zone it to do that and let engineering and planning deal with it, whether they can mitigate it with berms. I mean, that's an engineering issue, that's not a zoning issue. Or you could do stilts. And stilts are a common way of building, but you know, if you don't like it for some other reason, I just have a real trouble saying you can't zone it if it can be mitigated, and it can be mitigated.
Yeah, and that's the same discussion we had about the project on 10th West, was look at the technical issues of the subdivision, and then the floodplain issues will work themselves through their own process. So really, if you take the floodplain out of this discussion, then the question is this site appropriate for multifamily housing, given where it's located? And that's really the crux of
Yeah,
the
if you take
conversation.
it out, then is it still?
Yeah.
And Planning Commission approved that project and denied this one, so there clearly were different distinctions to that than just the
That's correct.
zoning.
Well, but in fairness, the Planning Commission didn't zone that. It was already zoned when single-family residential, when it went to Planning Commission. So this, now is the legislative decision. You gotta decide what's the appropriate zone. Once you decide what that zone is, then you've gotta live with whatever that zone allows. The discretion is then gone. If they meet the code, they can develop.
And, I mean, we mentioned this last time, but Country Manor, you know, Jeannie, you brought that up. Country Manor built basements. They built fixed buildings in a floodplain. It was poorly, it never should have happened. It never should have happened. This you can handle, you gotta.
This we can handle, we can put higher density than Country Manor and we'll handle it, right?
No, I'm saying if If
On the same kind of ground.
If you wipe Country Manor out and people build something on a stilt, it works. You may not like stilts, well, don't live there.
That's next to the ocean.
I'm saying you can build on a floodplain. I mean, you got 2 factories just south of there.
Can you go back to this current zone? Map on there?
That's the floodplain
That's the
map.
floodplain there. So the purple's industrial.
Yeah, the purple on the south side is industrial, the yellow above is single family or NR6,
Red's commercial.
red is commercial, and then the green is recreation.
What can we agree on as a council about this ought to be?
Well, maybe we should have the
I
public
don't-
hearing first.
I'm
Before we
just
start
throwing
discussing
some
what we-
ideas out there.
Yeah.
Vice Council.
You're so squirty. Okay, any other comments? Okay. Now's your opportunity for ordinance 21-11 for public comment. Anyone would like to comment? Now's your opportunity. I'll run it once. Let's bring it back to council then. Do we want to discuss some more, or is there action?
I'll move we deny the rezone to MR20.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to deny ordinance 21-11. Any other discussion?
Yes, part of my endorsement of that is MR22 is like super dense.
Yes.
So I may have a different feeling if we were looking at an R6 or something, but to go to 90 units in this area in the floodplain, well, that's my hesitancy based on the history of what's happened in that area with flooding already. And you know, I can appreciate, Tom, that stilts work, but stilts are working mostly on single-family homes. They're not on 90 townhomes that are.
Yeah, you can see higher density, but, you know.
Yeah, so the density level of this to me is
And what
also
single
a concern.
family just ignore too.
So
But then you have
it's,
And
industrial
Amy, I
too,
would
so-
have to agree with you, which is why I recommended denial. That was the question that Planning Commission discussed. They feel like this is just too much and too high of a density for this particular piece of property.
Well, we could maybe look at it.
No, we're not going to. We have one thing to
I'm
decide.
just teasing Jeannie. I couldn't resist, so. Amy's already yelled at me, so.
You're going to get it from both sides.
That's fine.
just
Okay.
made a suggestion.
It was a fair suggestion. All right. All those in favor of denial, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye. Or nay.
I will abstain.
You said
I will abstain.
abstain. Okay. So it has, you abstained, yes. So Ernesto abstained. So ordinance has been denied. 21-11. Public hearing for resolution 21-24. Chief Panic. You're up again.
I don't have any further comment about this unless you guys have questions. The fireworks restriction area is the same as it has been in the past. We're just required to each year present to council and you are required to vote on it. So unless you have questions, I don't have any further comments.
Pretty straightforward, I think, so. Any questions from the council?
No.
All right. Public hearing for resolution 21-24. If there's any public comment, now's your opportunity to speak.
Again, this is a personal opinion. Gail Yost, I live on 100 East here in Logan. I remember dry Julys where my next door neighbor's wayward son would throw his used fireworks that he got in Wyoming into our yard. Scared me half to death, and I did call the police to help him understand his father, in fact, was very pleased that I called the police because he needed to learn from an authority figure that this was incorrect. It is really important to keep our fireworks in a position or a place that is not going to threaten homes and livelihoods and cars. And we've seen those news pieces on the television of fires getting out of control that people have started, and I would recommend fiercely that you okay the restrictions here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. If there's no other comments, let's bring this back to the council for action.
I'll move we approve it. Number 2124.
Resolution 21-24 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Can I just ask Holly, there are going to be fireworks at Willow Park for the 4th of July, so.
Well-controlled fireworks.
Very good. Thanks for that update. All right, public hearing for resolution 21-25. Rich.
So a request to appropriate 3 items, one for $300,000 from the state for 7th North realignment. This is a grant from the state. The second one is a request to appropriate $4,600 for donated funds toward the police department. However, we're asking that we change that to $3,600. We've had subsequent information that we don't need as much to be transferred from the donations. So $3,600 if we could change that, and we've notified Teresa as well for the resolution to be changed if you're okay. And lastly, $11,751 for Hazmat training funds. This is another reimbursement from the state of Utah.
Just a question, the $300,000 for realignment of 700 North, is that the full amount? It seems like.
That's the grant portion. I think it's 50% approximately. I think we're splitting it 50-50 with the state.
So that will go over into the A&W?
It's the construction portion. And acquisition?
The design portion.
Design portion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought, you're not going to.
Well, it's design and construction, is it not?
So after I said I was sad that that funky intersection was going away, that very day, 2 of our employees were hit broadside at that intersection. Luckily, they are both okay. But the car is totaled. So, and the lady ran a red light on Main Street.
I'm glad we're doing it.
So, I take back everything I said.
Sounds great. Okay, if you'd like to make a public comment for resolution 21-25, now is your opportunity. Not seeing any comment, let's bring it back to the council for action.
I move we approve resolution 21-25.
Second.
Resolution 21-25 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Public hearing for resolution 21-26. Chief Hennick, you're up again.
And on this, I just comment that, given the amount of public comment we've received, I'd certainly recommend that we take more time to look at this issue. But again, I think Chief has a presentation that will help people understand the parameters that we're working with. And again, we can take some more time to deal with this. But are the mics working for those in the audience? Okay, I guess it's just my ears.
Go ahead, Chief.
So Council, I know there's been a lot of discussion about this, and so, we just kind of want to go through a little bit of the project and really how we got here. If some of you may remember, I know you were part of the council back in 2018, shortly after I got here, and we had a discussion about, the station being an older structure that had some issues. At the time, we were reviewing the roof needed to be replaced, our bathrooms were.
needed to be upgraded.
This screen, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No, the
Video.
cheapest screen.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see if you're as magical as Isa.
Yeah.
Ask Isa how to do it.
Uh-oh. You didn't get it so far.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
There you go.
Very nice.
So am I as good as Issa?
Yeah, you learned something new today too.
A little slower, but
Well, thanks.
Those are two, isn't it?
Boy, you're getting hammered today.
It's not the first today. So in discussion, obviously with our building, some of the issues that we're dealing with, I think at the time to replace the roof was well over $100,000. There's a lot of issues with our station. For energy efficiency, we don't have quarters for some of our female firefighters, separation between males and females. And then the most, the biggest concern, and something the mayor shared with you, is the seismic concerns. Buildings until the early 70s were not reinforced masonry in the state of Utah. Actually, we're the poster child for the FEMA website about seismic problems and issues within the state of Utah. I think there's over 140,000 schools and buildings, including our fire station, that were constructed with unreinforced masonry. So in the early 2000s, there was some upgrades made to put it at the what we would define as life safety level, as they call it, which for us in emergency services means that we have the potential of full and or partial collapse. We will get out with injury, hopefully not life-threatening. This is an issue for emergency services, as we're called upon during those type of events to be the emergency responders, and we have to be immediately available to respond during the emergency and after. And so that's a concern that we've had for several years. This has been a topic of discussion that we've had, and then additionally, we've obviously outgrown the building and the size and configuration. I mean, a lot has changed in 50 years. The department's, obviously quite a bit larger. We do have some satellite stations, but this is our main hub as well as our administrative offices. So one of the other issues that's kind of come of light with COVID-19 is, the pandemic showed many flaws in our structure design. We have actually no separation between our suppression crews and our administrative and fire prevention offices. So during the pandemic, there was many times where we were contaminating each other because there was no way for them, because their living quarters, they had to pass through our administrative offices to get to their living quarters and to go on calls. It just became very problematic. So, there's a lot of reasons for us to rebuild this station. I just wanted to kind of update that. So when we look at our options, I want you to know that we have spent the last year and a half trying to research locations and options of what we could possibly do. We first explored, obviously, rebuilding it in place, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but ultimately that compromises our service delivery for the entire construction project, which to me is unacceptable. It puts us in a position where, because of our deployment strategy and the number of units that we have housed at this station, it puts us, we have to sacrifice something. What is the council willing to give up in service delivery? I would hope nothing, and that's kind of where we stand, that there's really just a lot of challenges with that. The other was to, obviously because of the fact that the city already owned the property, that's why 100 East was the preferred option, but we looked at many. We looked at residential neighborhoods and the effects that could have, rebuilding in the commercial area. And what that really translates to is either eminent domain or expensive purchase, and that's an option. That's certainly still an option, but I'll talk about a little bit how it can affect us relocating the station too much further from where we are, how that would affect us.
So complications of rebuilding in place, I really kind of talked about the fact that, you know, our deployment of resources are limited. So what resources would we be willing to give up? And to me, again, not an option. So these are just some of the complications with that. You know, with relocating our dispatch notification services that exist, how do we do that temporarily, and the problems associated with that. We have no room in any other stations for equipment or personnel, so those aren't options for us. The additional expense and construction time, as we looked at the potential proposals and designs, we were looking anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million more in construction. And then, you know, that also was going to impact the neighborhood because of, you know, the construction. Additional time to build, and then a larger final footprint and construction area for our existing location. And then another complication was just the limited design. It didn't allow us to be able to build. Even if we tried to save a portion of the base space, it limited how we could build the station, which to me, if we're building a building for the next 40 to 50 years, we want to build what we should build for the future and not be forced to work around the current configuration. So when we really look at how our stations are located, there's a lot of important factors when it comes to this about where is the station located and how it affects the community as a whole. If you look here at this map, this is how our zones are broken up for different services. Those red dots basically signify where the stations are currently located, including the one in North Logan that helps serve our north end. So they're fairly strategically located throughout the city. If you can see just above where the words Logan City is, and that's the Station 70 that we're talking about. Their north and south zones go all up into the East Bench, above River Heights, including River Heights, and then all the way to the west, out to the sewer pond areas. And then you can see north and south. There should be a little bit of a circumference. ISO, which is the Assurance Service Rating for the fire service, requires that you should have a 1.5 mile radius for all your stations. This is kind of the area for Station 70 that 1.5 mile radius falls within. And our Assurance Service Rating currently is a 2. It was a 4 years ago. It's a current 2. Class 2, we're probably one of 3 or 4% in the country that fall within the parameters. There's a lot of factors that fall into that. The staffing, training, our water system, our dispatch center, all those are factors. One of the number one points of that is distance and time to response, right? So we want to be within that time. If we look at the last year's fire heat map and EMS call volume, the heat map that you're seeing there is really fire. And when we're talking about fire-related type incidents, you can see the majority of those fall right within the downtown area. The numbers represent call numbers for EMS. So you can see that we have a pretty significant volume throughout the city, and most of it's within the core. This is another example of the last.
Can you put that one back up?
Yes, really interesting.
Because it's hard to read, I'm sure I can't read those numbers there.
The reason why the 1,400 up above is because the hospital falls within those. We do about inter-facility transfers.
Okay.
So about 1,000 of that 1,400 is, and that's why that number is a little bit skewed. But you can see the high volume area is right where the station's at.
Is that because of commercial?
Commercial, and it's the main thoroughfare through the city. So there's a lot of activity. It's a dense
accidents where you have to go.
Well, it's densely populated, right? I mean, that's just a high volume. Our downtown corridor in most cities, that is the highest volume because it's where all your businesses are. It's where all your foot traffic is. It's where most of your density within the city as far as housing goes.
If there's a traffic collision, is that counted as one?
Yes, that's counted as one incident.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is another, just a different way of viewing activity within the city. As you can see, that's the city limits in red on the left. Providence and North Logan and River Heights are 3 cities we contract with and cover. On the right is the activity just January through May. Each dot represents an address, not necessarily an incident, because one dot could represent 300 plus incidents. But for the most part, it just goes to show the general activity that happens throughout, just since January of this year, throughout the city. This is another example of the zones, the 1.5 mile radius over the top of each one of our stations. 73 is not staffed, and so we only staff it when we have an airplane come in. So it's really not technically our station, nor is it ever staffed. But this is kind of gives you an idea of the 1.5 mile radius and responses, that 1.5 mile buffer that we basically look to fall within for station location. These two on the left are the activity for station 70 only. As you can see, where we're currently located, and you can't see the station anymore because it's covered up by activity, but it falls right in the center of that. That's a good thing. That really just kind of shows us that our station is right where the activity is. The thing I caution about us potentially moving locations is if you move, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 or 4 blocks, one direction or the other, then you're going to increase your distance to that opposite direction, right? Response times are critical. We have an average response time of probably 4 to 6 minutes to anywhere in that general for the majority of our calls throughout the city because of our station location and distance to the activity. So that's a critical factor in the deciding where stations should be, and when you change them, you could change that dramatically. When we look at this, that kind of puts us in a very narrow footprint of where we could potentially put the fire station. Depicted on here, obviously, City Hall, where Station 70 is, and then the main thoroughfare through the city, whether it be via the 91, the 89, or the 30. We really should be within that. Even as far as I'm showing on the north side, it's probably pushing it a little bit. We do feel like we're as far south as we possibly should be. But when you really look at that area, there's a lot of commercial in there, which means high dollar, right? And so when we were looking at this decision, stations that are located to best serve the community based on call volume, high-risk occupancy, response times, and geographical distance. This is really critical. As I researched, which is, a big portion of what my job is to be the expert, right? I hesitate to call myself such, but I do spend a lot of time and have spent the last 30 years in this industry and have seen a lot of stations built within the departments that I have, and I know there's a lot of critical thinking that goes into this decision-making process. I've studied a lot of other cities and about how they look at it, and those 4 factors are the only factors that they look at. The only time it talks about finances is in your limitations as a city to what you can afford to do. But those are the only things they talk about. So, this was a concept designed to put this on 100 East and Federal, and it was really because it was the most cost effective and the least impact on responses for the city of Logan for Station 70. That station has been there nearly 50 years. It's shown to be the core of the city through historical data and information to kind of show us that we're in the right place. So it seemed logical at the time. We understood the impact it can have, especially during construction. I met with a lot of the neighboring businesses to kind of give them, to allow them just to talk about some options, and we did make some adjustments and changes, and certainly will. The big concern here obviously has been parking, and we've tried to address that the best we possibly can. The parking stalls that currently exist are roughly, or actually exactly 150. If you include everything that Bear River Health has, which is actually 13 spots, and all the 117 parking stalls that exist currently, and then the 20 stalls that exist on Church Street, they will be exactly the same moving forward. There'll be one more for Bear River Health. There'll be a few less in the general parking area, and 5 more on Church, and 3 more on 200 North. So the net change is 0. So I know there's been a lot of discussion about how we're taking parking away, but we're actually just moving it. Now, the discussion has been that this could cause undue burden on 100 East and the pedestrian travel for the east side of First Street. This is a topographical, this is not my measuring tape. This is actually the GIS map for the county. And as we looked at that, so on the bottom, that's the parking stalls, the center of that parking where the station would be. If you walked up the sidewalk to the I guess what we would call preferred or appropriate pedestrian crosswalk down to either Leilani's or the bike shop, it's 710 feet. If you walk from that same distance from where the parking lot will be, where the station is, it's 700 feet. So it's roughly negligible in that sense, and also increases safety as we don't condone or prefer them to cross First East, as that is against the law. Now, the reality is that there's pros and cons for this.
I saw no response.
No response from him?
Breaking the law, usually your ears perk up.
There's a street
Yes,
there,
I've heard it.
and so.
Absolutely. There's a street there, and it's an active street, and although we don't, yeah. What's that?
It's normal that you cross the street at like Federal and Cross.
Right.
So it's not like it's not jaywalking as much as it is that they won't put another crosswalk mid-block.
Right. Well, because there isn't a crosswalk, it is in fact jaywalking, which is in fact legal. Is that correct, Chief?
Should have crosswalk.
Right.
Should have crosswalk.
So, look, I know that there's pros and cons with this. The pros for us is that it's close to our current location, thus keeping our response times similar to what they currently are. We believe it will beautify the neighborhood. The current parking lot is really in bad shape. It will replace all the, including landscape and the new parking area. So one of the issues for us is that the only one losing parking, the only factual statement about loss of parking is really for us. And that is a concern for me. We lose 9 to 10 parking spots within our footprint that we currently have, that we won't have, which is troubling to me. It also decreases the amount of space behind our station, and we did that to try to accommodate the neighborhood, not to accommodate us, because it certainly is not in our favor. But we felt like, we're trying to do our best to, we do know that there's going to be a disruption of parking during construction. To mitigate that, we've made arrangements with Blake Parker, and we're hopefully be able to work out some details for some areas around the neighborhood to utilize during the construction to help deal with that. We also know that the layout changes proximity for some business owners. We know that is an inconvenience, some for more than others, some legitimately, and some just based on opinion. But these are the facts that we're trying to present. We know you have a difficult decision to make here. We're just looking for direction. We're certainly looking for some direction to you to say, if this is not your preferred site, which we know is the cheapest, that this option is truly, from what we've gathered, is the cheaper option. Any other option is going to cost the city more money. Is that something that you're willing to do in order to relocate it? That's a decision that you make. It's my job to present the facts to you and hopefully and give you our concerns and our objectives and and that, you know, I can help try to meet everybody's needs, and especially the needs of the city and the fire service and EMS service that we provide.
And could I just add that, again, we have spent no funds on this proposal to date. Again, that's why we're coming to have a public hearing, and we've let folks know. And again, I'd ask Chief to kind of take a look at a couple of sites and come to you with some cost comparisons so we can prepare that information for you to have a little more specific comparison in the future, and we'll continue to have a public discussion. Again, this is the beginning of the discussion, and we can talk about it. And if there is a better site that council wants to choose, again, wherever it goes, there will be impacts. And because the impact is already at this location, it had seemed like a logical choice. But again, we're here to discuss that.
And Mayor and Council.
The item before us is that what you were going to say?
Is designed. No, what I was going to say is if we're considering other alternatives, we have to understand if costs are going up, the likely outcome will be selling this station. We've had people who are interested in buying it, using some of those funds to help offset the cost of a new station. It would not offset. It would, you know, the amount that we would get here would not offset the increased cost in property. There's no question. But that's just a fact of life.
It would help, but it would not offset.
It could help. It could help make it not be so painful to come up with the funds. But it certainly would not offset it, so we'd have to come up with additional funds in order to, if we wanted to find a different piece of property. Just so we know, we'd likely have to sell that property. Somebody would put in apartments or something else.
Which would impact the parking.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Well, it may not impact parking because that piece of property does have its own parking.
Yeah.
But it would still,
During construction.
right, potentially.
Well, no, it shouldn't. Not the way this would impact the parking lot.
Yeah, I know, but if you have construction, it's going to impact the neighbors. Go ahead, you have a comment.
No, I was just gonna say that the item in front of us tonight is the allocation of money to design a new fire station. Is that site determined or site indeterminate?
Well, that's why we want this item to be continued, to give everyone a chance to express opinion. We're trying to listen, look, you know, are there really any other options? What would the cost be, so you can consider that? So I would like to request that that be continued for us to do a little more due diligence and bring that information back to council.
I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah.
Well,
Right,
I'd
so
like
we could
to,
approve design funds, but yet if it's not for this site, it would be a waste
Right,
of
we must,
design
exactly.
funds, right?
And that's why we brought this. It's like, you know, if we're not going to build it on this site, we clearly don't want to spend design funds on that. Again, we have a proposal that works well on that site. If we go to somewhere else, then that, you know, that obviously would change, so.
I was just gonna say, as an architect, you don't ask somebody to design something if you don't have a site. You have to design it specifically for a site.
Right.
Any other questions for the chief?
Thanks for bringing that information to us. Some of that was new for me, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'll ask a question. Mayor, Chief, do you have the properties that you have looked at and rejected? What do we
Well,
consider?
We aren't really prepared to discuss that right now. I mean, again, we just thought the price tag was so high on one particular property, the response times are probably too far in another. I mean, again, you have a very developed area, so we don't have a lot of options. So we will make a couple of other calls to some property owners, again, see if there could be a willing owner, or willing seller. If not, then we'll come back with some potential values and see if council has, I mean, cities do have the authority to use eminent domain for, you know, facilities of this type. Is that an option you want to choose? So again, we'll have the public hearing tonight. We certainly want to hear the comments. These folks have come and taken the time, and we have the public hearing scheduled, so we're here to listen. And then we'll come back to council with some alternatives for you to consider.
Good. All right, let's open this up for public comment. If you, are you here to comment about this particular resolution? Raise your hand. Let's see, we have multiple, all right. Since you all would like to have some time, let's do a 2-minute limit. When you come up, please state your name, tell us where you're from, where you live, and make sure you sign in. And we have received about, you want to do 3?
Yeah.
I was just like, if we give 3 minutes to 15 people, we're
That's okay.
an hour.
That's what we're here for.
Okay.
And 3 minutes is, 2 minutes goes
Okay.
Too fast.
quickly, and 3 minutes actually is pretty good amount of time.
I will take your suggestion then. So, name, where you live, and make sure to sign in.
Do you want me to do timer for you?
Tom said he's got it.
Do you want to give them a 2-minute warning? So they know they have a minute. I mean, we've done that in the past.
Like a 30-second warning.
30-second warning?
Yeah, I don't need a 2-minute warning. I'm Jason Holmes, Principal Broker and owner of Achievement Realty, Achievement Property Management, and Annex Events on Federal Avenue. I grew up in Logan, about 2.5 blocks from the middle school, so born and raised in Logan. I live in Providence now and benefit from 100 East multiple times a day. I've had our brokerage on Federal for about 3 years now on Federal Avenue, and like most of us, probably all of us that are in the what we're going to for now call the Federal Business District, we like the area because of the location and proximity to parking. And it may seem moving parking from here to here, putting it back 1 for 1, which I don't know how it is 1 for 1. I've counted it several times and I don't see that, but it changes like everything for us. Our small businesses are backbone of the community fabric of America, and it's our lifestyle. For me, real estate is my lifestyle. For a chef, it might be the restaurant. For a thrift store, that's our lifestyle. It's our livelihood. And changing it, not just temporarily, but long-term, drastically changes, and not just short-term impacts financially, but long-term if people can't get to our flipping businesses. So I do want to applaud our public servants, fire chief, and police. I mean, we are pro-police, pro-fire. This is not a storm the Capitol, defund anything. We are pro all that, and I know myself have benefited from my family using 911 services. Big fan. Don't want to see that change. Lots of concerns we have. I've looked into the ISO rating with several local insurance agencies. My insurance wouldn't change at all, or if so, it'd be negligible. If it moved 4 or 5 blocks or 2 miles one way or the other, that doesn't seem to be a big concern for us. It really is the parking and the neat atmosphere that we have in our fun business district. It's a cool spot. It is. I mean, Center Street has their cool stuff. We have our cool stuff, and I've counted about 77 businesses or business owners, not just employees, that go from First North across from the Tabernacle. I didn't count the church. Along Main Street on the east side, up through Parker Real Estate side, and along First East. 77 businesses that rely and use that. I'm still waiting for, I'm almost done, I'm still waiting for a parking permit, sure, on one of my businesses that we've started, or my business permit, and a lot of it is predicated on the parking. And we've heard rumors, I don't like to share rumors or spread those, but if one of the other businesses like the health department were to expand, they need more parking too. How many times have we doubled up on the parking stalls already? And now we're receiving parking tickets if we're not moving them fast enough. So if we keep expanding and over occupying, which we love, moving the parking, it's gonna change everything and devastate the community. So we don't wanna see the blight come to First East, so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good comments.
We have a slideshow too, but we can say that for later.
Hi, I'm Reagan Torrey. I live in Petersboro, but I own the yellow house next to Sunrise. So at 130, I always forget the address. 130 North, 100 East. Currently we're running the School of Music. COVID slowed us down a little bit, but we're making it out of the red and into the black. It's been fun. I have some concerns, not only for my neighbor Sunrise, the bicyclers that will be in that area in the bike path that was mentioned. I've looked up Utah code on crosswalks, and there's marked and unmarked, considered marked and unmarked. No one is jaywalking in Logan when they cross over to Sunrise. It's an unmarked crosswalk because it is at the end of, it's at an intersection where two roads meet. So let's consider that. I love that the chief mentioned there's a limitation to what the city can afford to do. I think that's a critical piece. And so as we consider that, are we considering what possible liabilities that the city will be facing if there were a problem having the fire trucks come out onto 100 East with the large volume of traffic that is there? And that is it for me.
Thank you so much.
How's it going? Hi, I'm Courtney Larson. I own the sandwich place, formerly the Italian place. So if you're mad at me for closing down the Italian place, I preemptively apologize for that. Hopefully you got a good Philly. When I say about parking, I've looked at multiple places around the state with different restaurant groups, and one thing that makes and breaks businesses is parking in this state. We don't do well with parking garages. We don't do well with walking more than 5 stalls. I've met people who won't shop at Target because there's too large of handicap parking spaces, and they say they shouldn't have that much room, so they refuse to shop at Target. Parking is a huge issue as to how a business stays in business. And like it's been said, we're actually short on parking down there. All that said, yeah, I would love to keep as much parking there. I do support the fire department. I do support those things. So if we have to be the ones, I mean, at some point, somebody has to give ground. You know, everybody wants to say not in my backyard. I think this could be detrimental to a lot of businesses. If that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be. But I do think if we look at, say, the buildings right next to the USU Credit Union on Main Street there, they sold their parking off a few years ago to the credit union. Now no one can park there and no one will rent those buildings. They stand vacant. Maybe there's a bigger problem there that I don't see, but that's how I see that problem. Just having the parking move down where the fire station is now may actually help those lots become more viable. But I do think that places like Sunrise, the Yellow House, and some of those businesses down the street there will struggle a little bit. Mama's Kitchen, some of those. It becomes very difficult to get people to take a long walk for food. It's an industry, for me at least, that is not easy to make a living in, especially the way I make food. And that could be one straw that's pushed me a little too far. Like, I don't know the viability of my business as it is with COVID. Everything is more expensive, everything's going on there, and if we start construction and lose customers, it could be very difficult. That said, I don't have enough staff to open right now, so I'm not even open. I won't. We are where we are. Life is fun right now, very exciting. But again, if it needs to be there, it needs to be there. However, if there's someone to look at keeping parking towards the front of Federal Avenue where they can get across the street, or we're not creating quite the situation where it blocks certain businesses off, I think that could be beneficial.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm short, so my name's Sarah Colson, along with Peggy Mcdonald. We own Leilani Salon and Spa. We've been in business for nearly 9 years. In this 9 years of being open, we've employed over 45 local residents. On average, per month, we nearly see 475 clients per month, making that an average of 5,680 clients per year. So clearly, having a crosswalk from a street over, we by far understand the pedestrian thing. What sets Leilani apart from the other salon and spas in town, every single guest that walks through our door is greeted with a friendly smile. Everyone knows everyone, which I'm sure that is how word has gotten around your local beauty store. So our doors are literally open to everyone. We do not care what political party they vote for, nor who they identify as, or nor who they love, which that makes our business, that is probably how word got around so much about this issue, is because all demographics we hit and we see daily. Our clients range anywhere from the age of 2 years old to the young age of 103. We specialize in all spa treatments. Some treatments include hair, facials, eyelashes, and massages. Many of our guests come to our businesses on their lunches for only around 1 hour appointments. So if you add in time having to find parking spots, which we already do, and that's part of having a business, that obviously affects on the ability for people to come in during their lunches. Many of these guests hardly are able to walk long distances because of the extreme pain that they're in, and have come in for a massage. Or the 39-week expecting mom who the next day is said to have twins. She recently came in to get a pedicure the last day alone before her twins were to arrive. So clearly, when we were informed about the proposed location of the new fire station from our landlord, Jeff Keller, which, keep in mind, was 2 weeks ago. This, for 18 months, it's been,
That's your 30 seconds.
Okay. So for 18 months, it's been in the talks. The people who it deeply affect knew for 2 weeks. So I ask the city council members to vote against having it at 100 East and Federal, because really our business in particular, as is many of the other businesses, we are unable to move. So I just ask that you vote in favor for our disabled and handicapped clients who are unable to walk from the other side of the block to the businesses that support the downtown district. So, yeah.
Thank you. Swipe, Tom.
My name's Jason Henderson. I actually live in River Heights. However, I own the building at 180 North, 100 East. And tenants that I have there that rent from me, there's probably 12 employees that utilize the parking across the street. For the fact that over the last several years, the green space parking that was taken away by the city that a council member once promised me that would never be taken away. That was 5 stalls. And then the one side of 100 East, all that was taken away and for a bike path. I wasn't against that. It's just the ever encroaching less parking makes it less likely that people will rent that space from me to have no place for their employees. I want there to be a new fire station in the event that we need one. I want people to be safe and be protected. I question, though, some of the method that's happening. The chief was up here and said he's been at it 30 years. I'm not so sure that he has consulted some brilliant minds like Jason Holmes and Blake Parker, who are realtors that know the city probably very well as far as who owns what could happen. I'm a little bit frustrated in the fact that I was not consulted ever, or told. The chief has said both in written and verbal testimony just now that he has spoken with most of the people around there. It's not the case for me. I've gone door to door and talked to many people. They have not been spoken to by the chief and did not know about it until either from me or a couple other people telling them about that. I'd like there to be more transparency, more study. It was even stated that can we talk about other locations that have been considered? Not prepared to do that tonight. We need to take some more time to get the community involved who want to have a fire station, and also consider, a lot of building going to the north and west of town right now. There will be a very high density, that moving it towards that direction may be better into the 40, 50 years that we're thinking about, that there would be more incidents out there that would require the fire station to make calls out there. So I'd like to see the council say, let's really take a little bit more time and really vet this, get the community involved, get some other minds involved with know real estate, that know how this can impact, and see if there's a possibility that us as a community and as a council can work together to find some sort of win-win. The present proposal does not feel that way. It may end up being that way, and I'll be okay with that. It doesn't feel that way for the lack of transparency of what's happened and some of the communication that's gone on. So, thanks.
Could you give us your address again? What building you own?
180 North and 182 North, 100 East.
Thank you, Jason.
Hello, my name is Aaron Ritchie. I'm representing Mama's Kitchen, a new facility over there on Federal Avenue. I have, as always, close working relationship with the fire department now, has coming here being in a lot of commercial construction. I'm probably on my 6th commercial kitchen install now, so I definitely understand the importance. Many friends from other areas that were assistant fire chiefs in areas approximately the size of this, EMTs, volunteer fire department, whatever. So we certainly understand the importance of the efficiencies and the needs of those facilities. I moved here about 4 years ago from Pennsylvania, what some can call the Rust Belt, but there's nothing quicker than the death of a downtown than no parking. And, you know, I can definitely see the goals of the fire department and what is needed, but also many things need to be taken into consideration. Mama's Kitchen, ZMR, she's up at 7 o'clock in the morning every day, out the door. If she's home by 10 o'clock at night, I'm happy to see her. So let's understand what the business owners go through, how hard they work, and we do get visits from the fire department, which is very welcome. And to tell her that her food tastes great is what drives her. So just understand the passion that these people have. And most businesses fail within the first year, or don't make any money in the first year. So going right into this and her being in business for approximately 8 months, then to turn to a project like this, you're potentially looking, and even at just staging for this job, that all that parking's gone for at least a year. So that's going to be a significant impact. And if you look at the area, I know right now, Airmo Building, which is just to the west of that fire department, I can see when that renovation is completed there, you're probably looking at least 35 more parking spots that are going to be needed. If the health department grows, there's a loss of more. So parking to me is a huge need somewhere, you know, in the downtown area to maintain its viability. So knowing now that this is a voting meeting, and I appreciate the mayor for coming over a couple of weeks ago and listening to the community in the area. It takes a lot of nerve sometimes to put yourself out there. So I really appreciate that. So being a voting meeting here, I do respectfully ask that the council will table this decision till they can actually gather some more information, a little bit more public input, and maybe a little bit more due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
I was going to speak, but I'm going to yield my time to Jason, because with your time limit, I feel like, you know, we came here to express our feelings. Nobody wants to get up here and talk forever, but
if you want to come up to the mic so everybody can hear, because there's people online.
I'm going to give my time to Jason.
Can she yield? Is that a thing?
We need to get it on.
If not, it's fine.
We need you to come to the mic
Yeah.
though, because that's what's recorded
Yeah.
for minutes.
Okay.
And we'd like to hear your voice as well. Okay.
That's what you're here for.
Okay. My name is Peggy Mcdonald. I, along with my family, own Leilani Salon and Spa. Like my daughter said, we've been in business for 9 years. And, you know, we all talk about that change is hard. This isn't about change for us. This is about the end of our business. There is no way we will survive without that parking lot directly across First East from us. And when I hear about traffic studies, anybody that has been to Logan even one time knows there is more traffic moving north and south than there is east and west. I mean, go down Main Street and everybody that, well, I'm not gonna say everybody, but most people that we've talked to, they avoid Main Street like the plague because, you know, you go down Main Street too many times, you're gonna get rear-ended or you're gonna rear-end somebody else. First East is a constant line of travel, both ways. I just cannot imagine how emergency vehicles will be able to get in and out of First East when there is constant traffic safely. I just, for this time constraint thing, I just feel like it's kind of a kick in the gut because, no, like I said, nobody wants to stand up here all night and talk. We have a life too, but this is our business, this is our livelihood. And I just feel like it's insulting to say, okay, you have 2 minutes to talk about your life and that's going to end if we don't express our opinion. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Just so you know, it's pretty standard procedure for us to do 3 minutes for everybody, so.
Hi, my name is Dan Kelly, and I am a commercial property owner on Church Street. My wife and I moved to Logan about a decade ago. She got a faculty position up at the university, and you know, when we first arrived, one of the things that we were searching for was that, you know, pedestrian-friendly area with nice shops and eateries and stuff like that, and we were really attracted to the Federal Ave Church Street area, so much so that we decided to kind of put our money where our mouth is, and we purchased a building down there with the little bit of savings that we had. And you know, our idea was that we would have some sort of say and, you know, on a small scale in our own little building, who the tenants are, you know, what the building looks like, and that sort of thing. But we also kind of felt that by being a property owner, we might have more of a say in maybe the future development of that whole district, because it is a very unique place. And I think, you know, the truth is this proposal to move the fire station where it is to the corner of Federal and 100 doesn't really have a lot of financial impact on me and our investment. But I really, you know, after listening and meeting with a lot of the other area business owners, I really recognize the impact that it will have on them for parking. But I'm not really going to talk about parking today. I want to acknowledge how important it is, and clearly everyone's talking about it. I kind of want to talk about what that business district is to the city and what it can be for the city in the future. I think when I first heard about it, which was only on last Monday, the 10th, I received a letter in the mail. And I didn't really have a lot of time to think about it or prepare, but I started emailing people and all the other local businesses around trying to make some connections, and luckily I got connected with the group of folks there in the back. But I think one of the things I you know, just want to focus on is, you know, we're doing a lot of great things in the city, developing areas, the Center Street Plaza and the Center Street District and the block. I think that's all great. But what happens when we're finished with that development? I mean, is that the end of developments in Logan or not? In Logan downtown? I feel like the Federal Ave Church Street area is kind of primed for to be a continuation of that sort of project. And I can only imagine, you know, there's been very little kind of input from the city in that area. It's kind of developed organically by a lot of hard work, a lot of local business people, and I feel like, you know, by putting a fire station in that location, or even keeping it in its current location, is really a blow to the development of that particular area and the future development of our downtown. But what I will say is I expect my elected officials to be forward-thinking, balancing our short-term needs with our long-term future. Sometimes smart development costs more in the short term, but can create defining payoffs for the future. Oftentimes it's more difficult. The truth is it's always more difficult to not always take the easiest approach. We have a guiding document in the city, the 2012 Downtown Logan Specific Plan. I've read it a couple of times cover to cover because it just interests me. And I just feel like the Federal Ave Business District fits perfectly within that plan. And I don't understand why we're planning to pretty much nip that progress that everyone has made for all these years. We're gonna nip it in the bud by putting the fire station right in probably what is one of the most valuable and unique commercial districts in the city. I think that the specific plan frequently cites Pearl Street and Boulder as an example, but they should have been citing Federal Ave as an example. So I think coming up with a comprehensive and integrated solution to commercial development within the city, not just within Center Street, but other areas that are already ongoing, is going to be critical to the future of the city, the viability of downtown. And the last little bit that I'll mention is that Chief Hanig mentions the site is a bit small for what they need. I don't think it's a good start to have a parcel or have a project where you're going to spend millions of dollars and have the parcel or the size not really be ideal. So perhaps, in the examinations of alternative sites, that could be something that people really think about, because we want a new fire station, we want a modern fire station, we want a fire station that can support the community's needs. And I hope we get that, and I hope we also maintain some of our commercial viability in that area. Thanks.
What was your name again?
My name is Dan Kelly.
Very good, Dan. Thanks, Dan.
So my name is Renee Raber. I'm married to Jeff Keller. He has Sunrise Cyclery, and I also have a massage business right behind Jason. This parking lot won't affect my business, but it will affect Sunrise. So I put together, and I'd like to give this to you after I speak, the history of Federal Avenue and Church Street. And there was a junior high on that property, burned down, right, and we've got the deed. Jason found that today, and then they turned it into a parking lot. One of the first restaurants that were there was the Italian place, which is now that sandwich shop. There was also the Ibis. And when I came here to go to school in 1980, that was my neighborhood. I loved the Ibis, and it wasn't a coffee shop then. It was a little sort of natural food store. Then, as the years go on, the Linone has been a restaurant. First it was Center Street Restaurant, then it was the Grapevine, and then it was Linone. And that restaurant has always needed that parking. So it'd be death to Linone. Global Village Gifts used to be on First East. It's moved around. It was by the Episcopalian Church, and now it's in Dan's property. So this neighborhood is very important and very vital to the community, and it's very unique. All of these shops are either from the ground up. Nobody gave them any money. So I have a list of all the businesses and when they were started. Earthly Awakening's been there since 1995. The soap shop's been there since 2002. There's been that yoga space. It's now Shanti Yoga, and I can't remember what it was before. Mulligan's is for sale now, $600,000. And in their real estate advertisement, they show pictures of the parking lot. So they are promoting selling that business on the grounds that there will be parking for their people. And all these new businesses, like Achievement Realty, just got that, that whole place was built out, as you know, by Tony. And these people chose that location because of the parking. And the parking has just been an integral spot, and that was deeded in 1971. So these businesses, and the Italian place bought it from another guy who had a sandwich shop. So it's a really vital part of Logan. It's a very unique part. Summerfest uses that for parking. Where are they gonna park? Latoja's there, they use that parking lot, brings in a lot of money. All the motels, hotels in this valley, all the way to Brigham City are booked for people to ride that race, and many other races. So I just wanna say it's such a vibrant part of Logan. And I understand we need a new fire station, and people say you don't want that in your backyard. It's already in my backyard. I'm fine with that. Now it's gonna be in my kitchen. So that's a problem. So I hope that I'll give you copies of this, and then I guess that's all I have to say. It's really important. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thanks, Renee.
Do you want me to hand these to you?
Please.
Okay. Gotta have my homework. Thanks. Thank you.
What is your business?
I help in motion with my massage business. Thank you. Thank you.
Renee.
I'm a talker, so 3 minutes is nothing. Here's petition, over 500, very short order. There's been enough misinformation provided.
Can we get his name?
My name is Jeff Keller, and it's kind of discouraging to hear some of the things I heard tonight. Some of the information that's been provided. I've lived, worked on First East for over 40 years. I own 3 properties on First East. The parking lot is critical. If you play chess, moving the queen from one square to another randomly changes the game. So moving the parking lot and calling it 1 for 1 is BS, pure BS. It is not illegal to walk across the street. It used to be painted. Why is it not painted? I wonder. If we're worried about safety, why don't we do these simple things? We have over 14,000 people come through our store per year, thousands of bikes in and out. To do the walk that would be required, whether you cross the street at the corner or across the street on the non-marked crosswalk, would be too much for many of our customers. I've talked to all of you, and I appreciate the fact that you've heard us. I can tell the mayor heard us. I was a little bit hard on her, and I apologize, but I wanted to make sure she heard. She heard. But to be told over and over that most of us have been notified. What is most? What's your definition of most? I hope it's over 50%. In fact, I think it'd be close to 80. I found out, I was the early one to find out, April 12th. I got an email, I responded, and I had a meeting with the fire chief the morning of the 13th. And I was completely open-minded. I had no bone about it. I didn't even know what her meeting was really going to be about. This woman's going to yield her time to me, potentially, so we'll see how that goes if I run out of time. I had one of the council members walk a bike that actually didn't have a flat tire, but I should have made it not even have a wheel. Because we get mothers with a couple of kids in tow and a bicycle. And I help them. I'm not going to be able to walk through the corner, walk a half block away where I can't keep an eye on my business and help somebody. We also have customers, women often, they leave their child in the car because they can keep an eye on. They won't be able to do that. If you move a parking lot out of sight, which is what it'll be, it's out of mind. people will drive by and go, no parking. Somebody mentioned we can move Loda Joe. I'm Loda Joe. I'm the co-founder of Loda Joe. Yeah, I can move it. I can move it out of Logan. There's millions of dollars we brought into this community, and we've not asked for anything. We have built that neighborhood up, all my business neighbors. We built it ourselves. And now, to be looking at my life and my livelihood, their lives and livelihoods, being this sacrifice for convenience and what I would consider not super good data to make a decision. For example, it's not real data about the traffic. When I asked who made the traffic count, it's a hunch based on somebody there prior to 2017. Based on them working there for 20 years. Well, I've worked for 40 years, so does my opinion have a bearing on it? When we need to know what we want to do, we need facts. We need real facts. It needs to have a traffic count, a real traffic count, if this is what we're considering. Not some hunch. I'm not trying to make enemies. We're not against the fire department in any way. We're not against any of that. Our community is changing. The world is changing. Things need to be changed to meet that. But to sacrifice so many businesses for the convenience of building it there, I think is foolish, short-sighted, as somebody else brought up. So, I could go on. I don't know what time I have left. I'm trying to be short.
You're well over.
I thought it was maybe at 30 seconds.
Just so you know too, if you don't feel like you've had ample time to share, you can always email any of us anytime. We've talked on the phone.
Yes.
The opportunities this is not your only opportunity to visit with us, so.
Yeah, and most of us didn't know about this, so we've had very little time to prepare, and we've been asked by some people to provide facts. We could provide more facts if we had more time. If we had 18 months, we could provide a heck of a lot of facts. So again, we're at a disadvantage, but I'm really bothered when somebody says that they've talked to most of us. I was talked to, Stephanie was talked to, John Ryder Mansion was talked to. Those are the only ones that know we're talked to. Everybody that I talked to, beyond that, I was typically the informer. I think that's important to understand because we need to work on this together and not have it be speculation. So, here is some of our petition people. I don't know who wants that.
We have more, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna be very, very quick. People that kind of say this and that, so I will tell what we have all kind of to summarize a little bit. We're part of the same group, Christina Hallam, and I am a realtor that work with Jason Holmes of the Achievement Realty. I'm also the president of the Swedish Heritage Society that we're gonna revive. We have 1,900, we had almost 63% were just Scandinavians that lived in this valley. We've had a lot of people that wanna be part of this, and we wanted to revive that, and I felt that this location with an annex was a wonderful place to have Christmas markets. Center Street is great, but it became a little bit too busy, and I love bringing a lot of tourism into this town. I love the downtown, and that specifically the Federal Avenue and the Church Street. To summarize everything, we would thank you, Holly, for saying that can we wait? I think what we would like to create is, I would suggest, a typical Swedish committee with an ombudsman. You use the Swedish word, that we can have some creative people. Jason is amazing, but we have a lot of realtors and other people that could be included in that meeting to find, can we work on some other sites? They're not small already. The fire department
which I love, by the way, that we can have a place that's big enough for even a further expansion down the line. Could we create a committee, now that we finally know about this, to be part of this, to study some other sites from all different avenues? Believe me, that I know that we're all creative. We want to also preserve the downtown beauty for our children. And the ambiance is going to be killed. I'm sorry to be building a big building where we have a parking we've already talked about. But we all can be winners. We don't have to have someone that lose their business and the parking and the future. Someone has said that's not in the, what did you say? It's not in the in the backyard, it's in the kitchen. But hey, if this happens, so we don't have, we can't continue with our businesses, we don't even have a place to live, either kitchen or backyard. So that's important. We put millions into the Center Street, we love it. But that is not just the downtown. So remember that this little wonderful avenue that we have is worth a lot. But can we please just postpone? And could we please create a committee with other people too?
We are very open to suggestions.
We would love that.
State folks within that box.
Thank you so much.
Sorry for the slight interruption. Honestly, I've never seen Jeannie have that happen before,
Oh my
ever.
goodness, I put up do not disturb.
That was disturbing.
Christina?
Yes, please.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, so. We heard your comments.
I really apologize.
Good evening. My name is Beth Smith. I'm the CEO at Bear Mental Health. I do not. Am I done?
That was the timer for Beth.
Your time is up. Okay, well, it's almost enough time. I did not know tonight was a night to come and share our feelings. And it's been really interesting for me tonight to listen. First of all, I was so impressed, really, with the presentation. And I have been nothing but impressed with your fire chief. He has done outstanding, at least with Bear River Mental Health, in communicating with us. And I feel he will be open with anyone who comes to him. We've been a bit of a fence sitter, and I'm still kind of a fence sitter on this. When he met with me initially, and he initiated that, he was very open with us, and I was kind of excited about a couple of things that were said. And I think, you know, when he comes back and has to work with the council, then things can change. And I appreciate that. I feel a little bit like people don't want you in their neighborhood unless they need you, and then you're not close enough when you're an agency like Bear River Mental Health or the health department or the fire station, I guess I should say. And I feel like we're part of everybody's family here. It feels a little bit like retail versus those guys, and we're one of those guys, and we're valuable too in the community, providing a really good service. Some things that got said tonight was, you know, what if they expand? Bear River has already contracted for parking because we know there's a parking issue there, and we want our employees taken care of, and we don't want to impact other people in negative ways either. So I just think about the word partner, and I just wonder, isn't there a way that we can listen to each other and try and remedy each other's needs? I don't know that we can do it 100%, but maybe there are some things we can do as we talk together. I appreciated the time Mayor Daines gave us. She was just very willing to listen, and again, I offer that to anyone, sorry. But just very quick and acted like she would give us all the time we needed, and we appreciated that. Again, our fire station is vital, just like mental health, and we need to be able to provide those services in facilities that meet the needs of our community. Communities change. Good communities know that change happens, and they plan accordingly, and they work together, and that's what I think that we can do here. And I think that's all the notes that I had here, as things were happening again. I would probably have been a little more eloquent had I known tonight was the night. But overall, I'm supportive of what he's trying to do. And I know that it's a difficult position that you all are in. And I feel for the retail agencies out there. And I want to say we all live here. And I think that we can work together. And that's my comment.
Thanks, Pat.
How you doing? I'm Russ O'Donnell. I live at 1583 East, 1425 North. I just want to say I'm empathetic with the businesses. I understand your need of parking. I bought my bike from you, Jeff, last year. I eat at Lenona's. I like that place. When I bought my bike, I actually parked at the Tabernacle and I walked because that's what was needed, right? I needed to find parking and I walked over there. So I get the business, I understand that. My concern, I'm in favor for the fire department getting a new site. And all I'm asking is, while you guys look at this, if you think about seconds matter. The firefighters sit there and practice every day to shave seconds off of their skills in order to get to you guys who are in need. Every little task, seconds they're shaving off to make a difference. In looking at these areas of where we're going to put the station, I know it doesn't seem a lot to you guys, but 2 minutes in your worst time is everything. 2 minutes can be brain damage if they're not getting oxygen, right? A couple minutes is someone's baby not breathing. And I ask you guys to think about that, to remember. It's seconds that counts. So when you're looking at places for the station, I understand parking's vital, but this is a critical service, and we owe it to our citizens to provide that service where it's needed and not compromise on that space. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Russ.
This time I am Dr. Gail Yost, because when I use that, it's because I'm advocating for people. The one thing that's most important is life. It doesn't do any good to have a good livelihood and then get burned out. Or in my case, I live right down First East in one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, older than the historic district, and my house is 140 years old. I want them as close to me as possible. I've had a couple of minor emergencies with my foster kids where I needed to have somebody close. And it worked out really well, although the fire department was a little upset with one of my foster kids. The police department was very happy to help, and it made his day, the police officer. But that's not the point. The point is, what was presented was about making sure people survive emergency situations. And as much as I love that parking area, and I've used it when I used to work at Bragg in the 80s, I've used it for lots of different things. But the most important part of being in the city is to be able to live, not just comfortably, but to live. To live in a place that's a good place to live in a place that cares about one another. So if my neighbor thought I was in distress, she would make the call and somebody would come and get me. We need to be taking care of each other first, of our lives. And that is most important. We have to keep that as the highest priority. And after the presentation, from Chief Hannick. We need to realize that if he's getting this information about all the emergencies and how more of them happen within a certain radius, do we really want to have that changed? We may need another fire station on the west side. That doesn't mean we're going to change where we have one now. It means that we have to start thinking of expanding as our city expands, but we need to protect what we already have. And I hear those fire engines and those ambulances often enough coming down First East. And it's noise, but it's good noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yost.
I have some more handouts that should just bring them up.
Bring them on up, Jeff.
These are the stats unloaded, I have 6 copies of those.
Yeah, pass those around.
And then I don't have copies of these, but that's. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I can go again.
I do have one thing that I know, we only have 2 minutes, but it'll take me literally 15 seconds. To the comments of that seconds matter, I personally, of all people, understand the meaning of seconds when life matters. 15 years ago, I suffered a gunshot wound to the head and chest out in Paradise. So me of all people understand that seconds matter. And we're not about that you guys don't need a new fire station. We completely, I will fundraise anything, but just the location, I understand that we can't go within this square, but can we just please have more of an open mind about maybe rebuilding where the current one is, or looking at other sites? But I know the minute thing, but I just wanted to voice that me of all people appreciate the fire department and the police department and everyone. So us as a group, we don't want to come across that we aren't so appreciative, because we are. And I am a living test, person, I don't know, that, I'm alive because of these people. So I don't want to come across that I am not grateful that us as a group don't appreciate everything that you guys do.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else? Thank you all for your comments. We appreciate you being here. And like I said, don't hesitate if you want to share some more information, emails with us. We are more than happy to read and listen. Phone calls work great.
Can I just ask one question? If, as we do move forward and look at some other options, is someone set up to kind of communicate with the group? I mean, Jason, do you have that email? Okay, because I have your contact information, so we'll continue to work with you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I doubt the council's going to make the decision based on this factor, but there is some misinformation I'd like to clear up about the intersection and the ability to cross legally.
Yeah.
I'll just read to you out of the state statute. This is Title 41, Chapter 6A, Section 1003. It's dealing with pedestrians yielding the right-of-way. Excuse me. It states, between adjacent intersections at which traffic control signals are in operation, a pedestrian may not cross at any place except in a marked crosswalk. Because there's a lighted intersection at First North and at Second North, you cannot cross at that anywhere in that block unless there's a marked crosswalk. And that's state statute.
Can you read that aloud again?
No, we don't hear very well out here. I don't know if it's just.
Okay. Between adjacent intersections at which traffic control signals are in operation, so that's First North and First East, and Second North and First East, A pedestrian may not cross at any place except in a marked crosswalk.
Well, then we just need to mark the crosswalk.
Exactly.
Well, it's not marked, so what I'm telling you right now, that's not, it could be marked, but it is not. So you can only cross at the intersections currently because those are the only two marked crosswalks.
Thank you for the clarification. All right, let's bring it back to the council.
So I know we've discussed a postponement, but I don't know how much time, because correct me, we need to, if we defer it, we have to have it to a set date, or do we not in this case? It's a resolution, not an ordinance, or?
That only applies if we are trying to avoid renoticing it. So with zoning, where it's so expensive, we usually continue to a specific date, but you can just table it until administration's ready to bring back a new budget resolution, and the notice on that's really not that.
Well, the thing I would be concerned about is that we be over ambitious in providing notification when we bring it back if we don't do it to a time certain.
Well, I mean, why don't we say, should we just plan on 2 weeks, having some information? Again, we may, go another 2 weeks after that, but just because, again, I am concerned about the seismic stability of that station, and we would like to move on it as quickly as is reasonable. So let's plan on 2 weeks. Again, if something changes, I'll communicate with Jason, but to at least have some additional information for council to consider at that time. Again, you may still not be ready to make a decision, and that's totally fine. But we'll continue the discussion in 2 weeks, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but I'm looking for other site options. And will we have reasonable information in 2 weeks, or should we push it just a couple more weeks?
And from my perspective, I think information on traffic and actually information on parking lot utilization would be helpful to me. And in asking community development, I don't think a parking study's been done there for, Mike said, 12 years? It was when we did the downtown specific plan. So and I don't know if there's an intern that would be available to do a parking study, but to me that would be helpful information because, again, anecdotal can go both ways, right? So I know I drove a lot this past weekend on First East for a variety of reasons, and there were 4 cars in the parking lot. So I think having objective data would be helpful versus comments. So I don't know how long that would take, Mike, for a quick parking study.
Those works, they can do it. Riders and buddies. We did one for Center Block. We hired a couple of college kids to sit out there for a week. And then we had some anecdotal. Kurt Jensen went out there and looked at it a few times, and we kind of put it all together. But if you want to do a study, then I guess we really need to have some conversations with the mayor about what does that mean.
Okay. So
Public Works will have a traffic study on Thursday.
A traffic study on Thursday. Thank you.
On First East?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What about 200 North?
Yes. Yes.
Can we get the data, the raw data?
We will be happy to provide the data. That is public information, and you can have any data you would like.
If one of the options were to rebuild on site, the current site, what I would like to know, what are the potential service interruptions, like the time, if that's possible.
We have 10 different types of units. We have 4 people that run out of that station. So depending on the call type is the type of apparatus that they would use. If we build on site, we lose something. I mean, there's no way for us to keep all those apparatus there on site for a variety of reasons, especially during the winter months. It's just not possible to have our units outside. So there is going to be a disruption in service. What are you going to give up? Is it wildland service? Is it EMS services? Is it ambulances? Is it brush trucks? Is it a ladder truck? Is it an engine? All those are potential factors of we won't have on site. So if you put them anywhere other than there, it's gonna take us time to go get them or not have them at all. I mean, that's a question, and it's based a lot on based how we deliver services. I mean, that's not my necessarily choice to have limited people and more units than people, but that's the way we currently deploy. It is a cheaper way to do it. That's why we have done it for many years. I just don't know how we build on site. Now, the other issue is that certainly during construction, there's going to be a portion of that parking lot that's going to be taken regardless, especially if we try to build on site. And we're probably going to have to take more parking that currently exists based on the configuration of the way the building sits. So I really don't, I don't have a definitive answer, but you're going to give up something. And as we mentioned, time is it. If we have to respond from a greater distance to the bench area in the summertime, that could be catastrophic. So what do we give up? And that's a good question, Ernesto. I really wish I had a definitive answer for you, but I'm not going to make that decision of what we're going to give up. I feel like there's nothing that we do that isn't important. And as your fire chief, if you're asking me to compromise that service, I'm not sure that I can honestly say that I'm willing to do that.
Thank you.
I appreciate what Jason had to say, that we need to plan for future growth. We're gonna grow, the city's gonna get bigger, so it's something that we need to anticipate. I don't like giving up services either, Chief, so I just don't see how we can afford to sacrifice services. We need more services if we're gonna continue to grow, so that's a concern as well too. I appreciate the comments that have been made tonight. Russ, 2 minutes is an eternity for someone when your loved one is hurting. So I really appreciate what's been said tonight. So many good comments. So, Jeannie.
My suggestion, I know I'm out of order.
Public's over, so.
Yeah, I know I'm out of order, but my suggestion would be, first you need to vote on the agenda item, but second, create a subcommittee of maybe 3 of you to create the information and bring it back to the rest of the board.
Jeannie.
What I was gonna say is, in light of the comments that even, we've talked about increased service and growth and all of that, is it wise or important for us to figure out where the next fire station belongs?
Well, the next fire station is planned to be out near the airport as that area of town grows. So again,
but what I'm saying is, would it be a way to not compromise service to build that first?
we're a long ways away from that, and we don't have the money.
Oh, say stop.
The next fire station we build is, the cost of the station is negligible. Because, and the chief and I have talked about this a lot, the next fire station we build includes the staff who staff it. That is, we're gonna pay for eternity. The station will pay off in 20 years. The rest of it will pay for the rest of our lives. And then we're talking 12 people, minimum, to staff a station. So this is, that discussion does need to take place later. Now it's possible we'll need to discuss where those might be, but wow, that one is an ongoing expense that we can't afford and won't be able to afford. I mean, we're talking about doubling property tax in order to open a new station. This is not a fun one.
Never mind. I was trying to, move the pieces on the chessboard in a different way.
Clarification, Rich. Thank you.
But I believe Amy put forward a motion.
No, I said I was questioning what the wording should be as far as do they need a time deadline, but I would move we table resolution 21-26 until city administration can provide additional information to the council for their decision.
I'm good with that, second that.
Second. Discussion? We all get some more information, so. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're gonna table for now and get some more information. Again, thanks for your comments.
Well, pieces of that information are traffic studies that are forthcoming, and some discussion of other locations, because no other location has been discussed, in my opinion.
And alternate parking
And
options.
alternate parking options. So I believe that those are the critical pieces of information that we need to start with.
Can I just bring up one complication? Because I heard a lot, let's
Sure.
create a committee
Sure.
to discuss these things. Creating a committee, we really can't have a public discussion, at least not being financially responsible, about property we haven't tied up in some way.
Right.
So this, when we're talking about Logan where it is already built out, we can't have a discussion because we're talking about somebody else's property.
Right.
And I think it would be about the worst financial decision we've ever made to say, hey, we're buying these people's property prior to actually tying them up in some way. And so I hope no one expects a public discussion. I'm really talking to the public.
Okay.
I hope the public doesn't expect a public discussion about a piece of property unless we've tied it up financially, because, wow, that's just inviting, you know, we're buying your property, how much do you want?
Thank you for the clarification.
Rich, I can always count on you.
Okay,
And I would say those are the only discussions that we take back offline too.
And
They're not subject to public discussion. Those are closed door meetings when we're discussing the acquisition of property.
Yeah, we have like 4 things we can have a closed door meeting on, and that is one of them.
And whether or not we should, fire the sheriff.
Sheriff made his fair share of mistakes tonight, so.
There was questions about staying in the same place as a practicing architect. Let me just say that that's a bad idea, because I don't think the site is big enough to do what the chief needs to do. I don't think it leaves us naked, basically, of services in our central core area for a year at least. So I think that option needs to be taken off the table. And in my opinion, at least, the only option is to try to find a site that works within that circle of reasonableness and the circle of affordability.
Yeah, affordability, trust. Well, that's it for our public hearings.
Did we
Sorry?
vote?
Yeah, we did vote.
We did vote.
Yeah, and it was unanimous. That we,
Yes.
so
I
we
don't
continue.
remember saying aye. Uh-oh.
That's all right. Okay. Workshop items for resolution 21-28. Rich, you are up.
That's
We only have one item to discuss. It's a grant for $30,500 for our Parks and Recreation after-school program. We do get this one each year. I think we get 3 or 4 different after-school grants, and this is just one that we've received in the past. Request that council appropriate.
Bless you.
I have no questions.
CDBG.
Pretty straightforward.
CDBG?
Amanda,
Amanda,
you're up, Amanda.
you've been waiting all this time.
Hiding in the back.
Thank you for your patience.
She's got a job where she has to learn patience.
I'm learning a lot.
I get to present the CDBG 2021 Annual Action Plan funding recommendation from the steering committee.
Now you are.
Please speak into
You
the
can't be
microphone.
very far from it.
I did get a text from a person viewing, and they said we all need to speak into our microphones a little bit better. So just a heads up. not just do it.
Okay. So the estimated funding has gone up a little bit, from $538,080 to $546,010. So there is an extra $7,930 that staff has recommended goes to the 600 East Receiver project.
The big sidewalk project.
Yes. And this is just a list of all the projects and funding recommendation, and we'll just go through each one. So the first infrastructure project is 500 West, 400 South. The funding recommendation is $50,000 to install 1,230 feet of sidewalk, curb, and gutter along 500 West and 400 South, and install 3 new ADA ramps. That's the corner. And here's a map. The red is the new sidewalk. And then if you can see the black circles, those are the ADA ramps. And the next infrastructure project is 600 East and 500 to 700 North. Funding recommendation is $115,415 to install 830 feet of sidewalk, curb, and gutter along 600 East and 600 North, and 3 new ADA ramps. And there's the map.
I'll tell you what they're working on now looks nice.
Yeah.
So they're working on.
Someone shut the door so that.
They're working on the area north.
Thanks.
Yeah.
The third infrastructure project is Riverside Drive. $100,000 is the funding recommendation to install 722 feet of sidewalk, curb, and gutter, and 1 ADA ramp. And there's the map.
So this is in the island area, correct?
Yes. And moving on to public facility, Little Lambs recommended funding is $20,000 to purchase a new forklift to move their increased supplies. The owner will be purchasing the 48 feet of the pallet racking shelving as part of their match. Next public facility is the Whittier Center. Recommended funding is $77,000 to replace the old tiles in the remaining part of the playground floor. The last public facility is the Logan City Art in the Park mural program. Recommended funding is $10,000 to commission a series of murals in parks that are in low and moderate income neighborhoods. It's anticipated that up to 2 murals could be completed this year.
Mike, did you say there was some extra money for that, possibly?
Yeah, possibly an extra 14,000.
Thank you.
Okay, public service, Sunshine Terrace, recommended funding is $20,000 to purchase a new 2020 Dodge Caravan to be used to transport clients and residents. Next public service is CAPSA, funding recommendation $27,165 to purchase new equipment for their new education wing. 2 large copy machines, 1 tabletop copy machine, 6 large TVs with Chromecast for their 6 training rooms, and 2 additional computers. And then the last public service is the English Language Center. The funding recommendation is $11,500 to purchase new equipment, a color copy machine, 3 portable microphones, and a Wi-Fi amplifier. And then for program administration and planning is $107,000 for 1 full-time employee, and then planning. That's it. Thank you.
Compliments.
Mike Wolford, whose property would have that sidewalk on Riverside Drive, was concerned about, I know that the engineering hasn't been done, but he like to get a contact.
Okay.
How you plan, you know who he is?
Yeah. We can have engineer reach out to him. This is Sam.
Okay.
I know Paul's been on the phone with him today, I know.
Yeah, it would critically impact his yard, obviously it's already.
I talked to him the other day too.
All right.
But again, the city right-of-way does go right through.
But he just wanted,
Yeah.
he's not opposed to it.
Yeah.
He just would like to.
We know it will affect him, and I think that's why Paul was reaching out.
And he knows too, he knows, so, yeah, he's reasonable, so.
It's the roots of a big tree.
Okay.
So, the outlook with all of the people who applied for some of those grants, were they notified as far as whether or not they were or were not selected for funding? And will they have the opportunity to come to the public hearing in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we pass it after that thing, right?
I'm just saying they were notified, the people who were not selected were notified to have the opportunity to come and present to us in 2 weeks to appeal the fact that they weren't chosen.
Oh.
Yeah, they
It
were,
wasn't permanent until we voted on it.
Right, well, it's not permanent until we vote on it, but they were notified that that they did not make the final list. So I just want to make sure that those organizations were made aware.
So they could appeal.
So they could come and speak to us if they wanted to. Okay.
Fair enough.
Anything else? Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So I have a list of 12 things. I'm getting so hungry, I was about to eat my pickled onions.
Do you really have something?
I have nothing.
Okay. We did get an email about the negotiations for 1400 North with Union Pacific. Any changes, updates, anything going on with that?
Nope, it's in a long process. It's in a very, very long process.
It wasn't a question of whether it was specifically a legal process versus an arbitration.
Has a decision been made to pursue legal options, or are you actively engaged in negotiations from Eldon Peterson?
The answer is yes. We're proceeding with legal options and we are negotiating.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes.
It's not like my wife. Would you like red or green? Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to compliment Kemper on his new attire on his face.
Time to end the meeting.
I'm glad you appreciate it.
No other considerations?
No, I want to say, Amanda had at the bottom compliments. I want to say you
Amanda,
did
you
a
did
really good
wonderful.
job.
Great.
In fact, amazing.
If there are no more, our meeting is adjourned. Thanks for coming. And thank you, council, for your assistance.